his statement on the need to empower young people with the aim of improving Kenya's economy as well as getting rid of debt.
By the time the first regime was ending, there was an emergent African middle class in manufacturing, in banking, in insurance, and so on. These were basically killed later on through wrong policies and also the pressures from IMF and World Bank. Liberalization that killed very many businesses.
For their part, the businessmen have said that the time has come for President Uhuru Kenyatta to hand over the nation to a moral leader. The Ministry of Health has announced that 255 people tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 6,305 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is now 4%, with total confirmed infections rising to 248,770. From the cases, 249 of them are Kenyans, while 6 are foreigners, 138 are males, and 117 are females. Meanwhile, the government aims to vaccinate 50,000 inmates across various correctional facilities in the country in a 5-day vaccination drive. The exercise launched by the Ministry of Interior and coordination in partnership with the Ministry of Health is meant to lead to reopening of the facilities and allowing inmates to enjoy visitation from their families following restrictions imposed in April last year due to COVID-19 pandemic.
Tunataka kufungua jela ili watu wakutane na familia zao. So the only way, nataka kuambia tu kweli, the only way we can do this fastest is we ensure kila mtu amekuwa vaccinated. Mimi by Friday this week we should finish vaccinating the staff of prisons wote. Na tumepewa 100,000 doses na ministry. Kwa hivyo tuko na vaccine ya kutosha kwa kila mtu ambaye ako hapa.
The Teacher Service Commission's plan to train teachers on self-improvement has continued to receive opposition as the issue is now being referred to Parliament. CUPET Chairman Mboko Milemba presented a motion in Parliament urging the TSC to answer a number of questions about the program through the Parliamentary Education Committee. Among those questions is how the policy was established without the involvement of all stakeholders. He also wants the cost of training at 6,000 shillings a year addressed, insisting that a qualified teacher ought not to pay for the training.
Your humble petitioners pray for intervention of this House to 1. Cause the Teacher Service Commission to undertake public participation on TPD, inquire into the circumstances under which Teacher Service Commission selected only 4 institutions, all in Nairobi region, to offer TPD program despite there being other reputable universities countrywide. Recommend the Ministry of Education to take the strengthening plan to shoulder the attendant cost of the training.
Now brace yourself for tough times ahead. The Central Bank of Kenya has warned that high food and fuel prices will continue to increase pressure on Kenyans' livelihoods. In a statement, CBK's Monetary Committee warned that the overall increase in prices of goods and services have largely increased due to the increased fuel prices that has seen petrol retail at 134 shillings per litre. While the hike has been blamed on increase on crude oil, it's the taxes levied on the product that has made a bad situation worse. In August, food inflation increased to 10.7% from 9.7% in August as compared to 6.5% in July. Now, Gor Mahia has confirmed parting ways with goalkeeper Samuel Njau, who joins Posta Rangers for only 1 year at Kogalo. According to the club sporting director Ludwig Aduda, Malian international Adama Keita, Matthews Gard, Boniface Watch and Caleb Omondi will cover the department this season, although head coach Mark Harrison wanted to keep only 3. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother.
I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
See, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has anybody that kind of? Has anybody been
Listen, I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
The action is already happening coming out of Westlands this Wednesday morning, and it looks like it's going to be quite the pile-up as you get into the city and then throughout onto Mombasa Road. We're also seeing some traffic building up here already, as is the norm, but it's actually not too bad right now. At a slow crawl is what it looks like coming past the SGR. Other parts of the city looking pretty good. It's building up just a little bit at the Pangani underpass coming off of the Thika Superhighway, but clear traffic through and through. Even the usual suspects this morning of Langata Road and that part of Ngong Road looking quite clear. A few minutes after 6 o'clock, it looks like this is the time to be on these Nairobi streets. Let's see what it looks like in a short while, but for now, this is the time to be out. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch with us this morning, just in case anything does go south. Talk to us on text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning to you, 29/09/2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation this lovely day. You look very good, Ndu. Do you feel as good as you look?
James Brown, I feel good.
So good.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling?
I'm all right, thank you.
Good.
Yes.
Very good.
How are you? Good morning.
Good morning
Eric,
to you.
CT.
Good morning, my sister.
It gives me joy to be in your presence this morning.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. It's a blessing.
Isn't it?
Do you have peace with you,
I've
City?
got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river.
Lord is good enough for me.
It was good for
Paul and Silas.
It was
Paul and Silas.
It was
Paul and Silas.
It is
good enough for me.
Now give me that.
Old time religion.
Give me that.
Old time religion. Old time religion is good enough for me.
Wow. Brilliant. Brilliant. I was actually even thinking of another one of peace. Amani moyoni mwangu, Yesu mwokozi wangu, sina shaka kamwe kwa sababu yeye yu nami moyoni mwangu. Yes, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. It's a lovely Wednesday. We'll have several conversations today. And looking at what's happening around the country and around the world. Let's begin with what's happening in the country and in the world when it comes to COVID-19.
Sure. Let's look at Kenya's positivity rate, currently standing at 4.0 on the nose. Total confirmed infections now to 248,770. Cumulative tests so far conducted in the country at 2.5 million. From the cases that were realized yesterday, that was 255 people having tested positive for COVID-19. This is from a sample size of 6,305 tested in the last 24 hours. This is what is giving the positivity rate of 4.0. It's a good rate because what are we always aiming for? Just under 5%. And this is what has happened now with that 4.0. Also looking at the sample size being relatively large, and then you have that. It's good if we can keep things under and then get to the point where we're really, really low. This is a good thing. Cases continue to be distributed across the country. There are quite a lot of people who are still in hospital. Also, a lot of people who have been discharged. We're also looking at those who are under the home-based care routine. 7 people died. These occurred, interestingly, in the last 24 hours. This is one of the first times that we've seen that these deaths have been recorded on the same day. Am I making sense?
You're making a lot of sense, but we'll carry on with what you're saying. Then I will explain to you the source of my great mirth.
Okay.
Go on.
7 patients succumbed to the disease yesterday. And so of these 7, 1 of them occurred in the last 24 hours. 6 having been recorded in the month of September.
Right.
All right. We also got some vaccinations from... I'm just going to tell you in a bit. We got some vaccines from Pfizer, 210. So we're inching closer and closer
Donated
to that.
by the US.
Donated by the US. So you see this big number that had been announced by the Biden administration that was going to come to Kenya. It's coming, drip by drip, but it's coming.
Question.
Right?
Question.
Uh-huh.
It was in the papers yesterday that the first batch of the Pfizer vaccine has not been rolled out. Because of why? Because it requires a special syringe, which the doses that came didn't come with that syringe.
So they're useless.
Yes. Dr. Mulo said, now this one requires its own different kind of syringe for the Pfizer, and we have not received. I don't know whether it's coming. I don't know whether it was now going to come. So the new 210,000 doses of Pfizer have arrived. Did they come with a syringe?
This is a good question. And I will tell you the answer in T-1, 2, 3. Well, we don't have that information because all we've been told is that they have arrived. It was received by PS Mochache and CAS and Namwamba, and it's part of the 2.03 million that we're supposed to get. It's just talking about where it will go in the country, but in terms of the specifics and the details, we do not know. It's the same thing that we saw in the very beginning when COVID had, and then there was the donation of different test kits that came, but then they did not have reagents, so we cannot do anything with it without the reagent, right? Whether they're 1 million and you don't have reagents, they will just sit there and we cannot use them. It's likely that this might be the same situation, but we were just going to have to wait and see. It doesn't give us any of that information at this point.
Oh, the USAID, the government through the USAID is also going to spend 495 million shillings to support the vaccine rollout in Kenya through projects aimed at increasing demand for vaccines, health worker training, project monitoring, strengthening the supply chain, and cold storage capacity. One would hope that includes
the actual
syringe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One can only hope, however.
We can, with that part of increasing demand for the vaccine, we can play that part very well. Yeah. Our guys should talk to their guys. So, City, before we take this break, why are you want to tell us after the break?
Well, actually, suspense is very useful in storytelling.
Okay. Suspense. It's 6:15. Kenya's biggest conversation takes a break. We're already live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Where are you this morning? Are you in Guatemala, in Papua New Guinea, in Guyana, in where else? A country that starts with G?
Grenada.
In Grenada, Ghana, Gabon. Where else?
You want another one that starts with G?
Rwanda.
Goa.
Go.
Is that okay for you?
Are we doing okay?
Yeah?
Are you alright?
Yeah.
You were going to say you want H.
Yeah?
I thought you were going to say you want H.
I do.
Honduras.
It's it's Honduras.
Yes.
Sawa basi. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
The weather with Spice FM.
Clear conditions in Nairobi this morning. The moon was out today. 13 degrees, highs of 28 today. Mostly sunny conditions later on. We'll come back down to lows of 13. In Nakuru, it's clear at 14 as well. Highs of 27 and lows of 14. 12 will be the low in a mostly cloudy Nyeri. Highs of 26. We're looking at clear conditions in Eldoret as well at 13. We'll come down to lows of 12 and highs of 25. In Mombasa, light rain in some parts, cloudy conditions through the morning at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Malindi, light rain at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 25. We're looking at clear conditions for now in Kisumu at 20, that'll be today's low, highs of 29, and in Kakamega, 18 degrees, clear conditions, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Out in Kampala, mostly clear conditions as well at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is raining this morning, 24, and we'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 23. In Johannesburg, clear conditions at 17, highs of 28 and lows of 13. Lagos, mostly clear conditions at 25, might change though later into rainy skies, highs of 31 and lows of 24. Clear conditions in Kinshasa, highs of 33 and lows of 24. Let's look out into Beijing, where it's sunny at 25, going into early afternoon, highs of 26 and lows of 17. While in London, partly cloudy conditions at 12. We'll see lows of 9 and highs of 15. It's mostly cloudy in Paris at 15. Highs of 17 and lows of 7. Still Tuesday night in New York. However, it is clear. Waking up into Wednesday, we'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, it is 19 minutes past 6. Kenya's biggest conversation, live streaming everywhere on social media. Spice FM, KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Who is online, Ndu?
Okay, quite a number of people online this morning, if I can just find them. Don't know where they have gone, but there they are. Dalian Sabunge says, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I loved the singing. Hey. He's tuned in from Nyakach in Kisumu. Manyepelo Kabi says good morning, and he's tuned in from Bloemfontein in South Africa. Good morning, tuned in from Malindi, Magarini, and that's Javan Khalsifa. Sorry, sir. Dominic Muteto tuned in from Zambia this morning, and from Botswana, that's where Mount Joy Shungu Chikura is tuned in. Charity Minor tuned in from Nakuru. The Great Wall of Kino is still up, and he says, such a lovely way to start the day with a very lovely choir. Good morning, Eric and your team. I'm tuned in from Isiolo. That's where Lawrence is. Bade Ashley is tuned in. Caroline Wanga says good morning. Asumta Larson tuned in from Denmark. And Joshua Songo is tuned in from Nyamira and says, mark me present. We have marked you present. Natiwa Mba. Okay. Greetings. Narumoro Massive represented is what he's saying. And we can see all of you online this morning. Good morning. Karibuni Sana. TJ Apache says, good morning, men and ladies. Streaming in from South India, coastal beach town, Goa.
There you go. See?
He said we should bring a discussion on the inequality of COVID-19 vaccines in Africa.
Yes, yes.
We see you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for joining.
Yep, that's
Asante
a good one.
Sana.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, today's proverb.
I was not able, disclaimer, to get the Abagusi proverb from my source.
Okay.
But I promise I will continue trying.
All right. Mwalimu Irongo Amos, please give Mwalimu City Muga and Abagusi proverb.
Sana.
Yes. Higher.
Even, this is how this particular proverb of today begins.
Even
the king of the forest, not jungle, forest, the lion, must protect itself from flies.
Even the king of the forest must protect itself. The lion must protect itself from
flies.
Ah, it's a good one. That's a good one. Everybody has an irritant.
And the irritant doesn't care whose king you are.
Yes. Everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, you have an irritant.
You continue being king, it's okay.
Yeah.
But they will do their job.
And you better recognize. All right. So, looking at the headlines, start with what you were looking at, City.
What I was looking at
suspense
is actually a discussion that is ongoing
right
between the Ministries of Labour and Health. And there are talks to expand the age bracket for elderly persons benefiting from free National Hospital Insurance Fund.
Free NHIF services.
And they want to expand it. It is for those who are 70 and above, but the expansion, they want to begin it at 60. So if you're 60...
So this is why you're happy.
It was tickling you.
It was tickling me to death.
You just realize that you fall in a vulnerable category.
No.
As a heavily marginalized group of people
this is what
that gets government support.
This is what I realized. In fact, I read, hoping that there'll be a column where they're saying that those benefits that old people get every month, that they're also going to lower it to 60. But that one didn't appear. Sorry, that didn't appear. So, this being old has benefits, guys.
Hey.
We should all strive to get there.
Okay.
Please, be patient.
Join you.
Yes, the key to getting there is to stay alive.
Voila.
Yes.
The bill was actually in Parliament yesterday, the NHIF Amendment Bill, remember? And members of Parliament have said, yes, let's go. There's a story. So what page is, what newspaper is in that? Is
this
that story?
Is the Star.
That's the Star.
Yes.
So it's looking at now some of the impacts of the new bill.
Yes.
The age bracket of those that are to get free NHIF. Wait, what does that mean? That they don't have to pay the contribution?
It's free now, you don't.
Free means you just go and enjoy benefits.
You go pick up your card and you walk.
Why has my mother been paying NHIF? Or is it contained in the new bill? Is it going to kick in now?
I think NHIF is not going to refuse payment if you keep paying.
They won't tell you, oh, sorry, how old are you? You actually shouldn't be giving us this money, please. Can you take it back? No.
Well, those are good things, actually. Because also the new bill is, you remember the word we were talking about, making it a mandatory contributory scheme for everybody who turns the age of 18. It establishes the National Health Scheme, whose membership will be compulsory for every adult Kenyan contributing 500 shillings every month or 6,000 bob annually. Any person who attains the age of 18 years and is not a beneficiary will be forced to register as a member of the fund. By not being a beneficiary, we are talking about if there is no other primary member, contributor. Well, the bill had mandated employers to contribute for their staff. Leader of Majority Amos Kimunya successfully pushed an amendment that binds employers to match contributions with what their employees are liable to contribute to the fund. Now, for the first time, it will be like a pension. So it's not just your deduction. It is your deduction plus your employer matching 1-to-1. The employers had warned against being compelled to match the contributions, arguing that this would affect their wage bill and undermine the capacity of enterprises to create new jobs. But MPs heard none of this, and they unanimously adopted the proposal, setting the stage for the increased contribution to the fund that, if implemented, will see NHIF raise an additional 25 billion shillings every year. In the same amendment for both the national and county governments, the top-up will be at such a rate as may be determined by NHIF Board and the Ministry of Health. This amendment by Kimunya also introduces two categories of those whose contributions are not from salaried employment. That is, unemployed persons who have no family and unemployed with family. The idea is to equalize the contributions so that we allow as many people as possible to contribute commensurate to their burden. There was an attempt by South Mugirango MP Sylvester Osoro to oppose the amendment, and it was rejected. Osoro had questioned the use of the word top-up and insisted that employers be compelled to pay a shilling for each shilling paid by the employee's contribution. Well, it comes out to the same thing, Bwana Osoro, isn't it? So, yeah, we're heading closer and closer towards that moment where NHIF becomes a compulsory contributory scheme, where as long as you are 18 and you don't have somebody who's paying on for you, you basically have to cough up 6,000 shillings every year. And then now let's look at the suite of services and benefits that you'll get.
Be interesting to see what that'll be.
That'll be interesting. Yeah. Another story.
So MP seek details on 8.6 billion shillings fuel levy from the energy regulator. It was interesting to see those sentiments play out yesterday. The energy regulator is under pressure to reveal details of a multi-billion shilling fund intended to cushion Kenyans from high fuel prices. Where is the fuel subsidy? IPRA boss taken to task. Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority Director General David Kipto yesterday told lawmakers that Treasury released 8.6 billion shillings from the Petroleum Development Levy Fund to stabilize fuel prices between April and August, before it was withdrawn in this month's review that saw prices shoot up. Mr. Kipto, who was summoned by the National Assembly Finance and Planning Committee to explain the steep price increase, refused to disclose how much is left in the kitty and why the subsidy was withdrawn. The National Treasury has been drawing from the kitty to compensate marketers after IPRA cut their margins, which kept diesel and kerosene prices at 107.66 and 97.85 shillings per litre respectively between June and August. The price of petrol was capped at 127 shillings at the same period. From her calculations, according to the Homa Bay Women's Representative Committee Chairperson Gladys Wanga, my quick calculations from the monthly fuel consumption figures you have given show that the fund should have had more money left at the time the subsidy was discontinued. Explain why the subsidy was withdrawn, yet the fund was not exhausted. Contribution to the fund was increased to 5.4 shillings per litre on petrol and diesel from 0.4 last year. The money is to be used on the development of the petroleum industry and stabilizing of fuel prices. So Mr. Kipto was being asked to explain why. The stabilization of petroleum products is a policy matter. I do not know why the subsidy was discontinued. The right person to answer that is the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, not me. The IPRA boss appeared before the committee alongside Kenya Pipeline Company KPC Managing Director Macharia Irungu. Kipto said the high fuel costs are due to increased landed costs since October last year, following a rise in international demand.
What was that you're talking about?
Huh?
The landed cost increased because by the amount that it did, because there was a rise in the international demand for crude. This is the explanation that they are being given.
You know, they can explain it the way they like. They can push the can down the road as often as they like. What the cost of crude, landed cost of crude is in the public domain. The cost of crude in the international market is in the public domain. Why can't leaders simply take responsibility for the jobs that they have been given and simply speak truth to the matter and say, folks, this is what we are doing because we need to raise this money, okay? Sorry, it's inconveniencing, but this is what we have to do. And we are going to continue doing it.
I think the cost of the landed costs is an open secret. Just like even the Senator Olekina was saying the other day. It's an international exchange figure that is known. So landed cost is landed cost.
It can't be hidden.
It's public. No. It's public knowledge. So when it lands here at 60 bob, everybody can see why it's landing at 60 bob. You've bought it at around this much. You've put in your small margins. It's come at 60 bob. But I was looking at what the Finance and Planning Committee of the National Assembly was doing yesterday, and I was just asking myself, so what the hell are you people doing? You're summoning IPRA to come and tell you why the fuel cost is high. And you can see the breakdown of the components.
Each adjustment.
Yes.
Each increment.
What else is this person come to explain?
You can clearly see. In fact, he came and just told them, okay, so guys, the largest component in fuel is taxes. Who's responsible for taxes?
You.
It's you. That's simple.
You should actually be telling us why you didn't bargain for lower taxes.
The only thing, EPRA said, the only thing that we have control over, which has also been set by you, is on the margins that we give the oil marketers. And that's a 4-bob margin. 4-bob. It has landed at this point, they get 4 shillings. Everybody in the chain. Whether you're transporting, whether you're a pipeline, whether you're the one with a truck, whether you're the one with a... It's 4. All right? Everything else is these fluctuations of taxes and levies. And that is not me. One of those levies is a Petroleum Development Fund, which is supposed to be this cushion that whenever there is a rise, so it comes in and cushions. Those levies, that levy takes money into a fund. That fund needs to be operationalized by regulations, which are passed by
you,
the National Assembly. The National Assembly has never operationalized this fund. So even those 3 months that the government has actually sunk its hand into that fund to get money out, they have been unprocedural, if we get technical about it. And now, what the DG was telling them, ask the National Treasury how much they have. We are not the ones who collect. We are not collectors of taxes. We just set a formula. The money goes and it's managed by the National Treasury. If you ask me how much is left,
I can't tell you.
How much is in that kitty? I don't know. I'm not the one who keeps the kitty. Ask the National Treasury. Does the Finance Committee know this? Of course they do. Do they know that the Petroleum Ministry is in charge of policy? Of course they do. Do they know the Treasury is in charge of taxes and levies? They do. Drama upon drama, taking us nowhere.
Don't you get the impression that these committees are trying to give us this clear impression that they're actually working?
Yeah. We can see right through you, Gladys Wanga and your team. Come on.
This is
my quick calculation on how much may have been collected is about 25 billion shillings. Is there any other time that the stabilization fund has been used other than the 8.6 billion? Because it means that we could be having more money in the fund that could have been used for stabilizing pump prices. Kenyans don't have to grapple with high fuel prices because you could have easily applied this amount that has been collected through PDL. Yes, of course you could have.
It had small. I think it was window dressing because exactly, pandering to the cries of the public, it must be shown as though something is being done. But you're basically asking them to explain what anybody can figure out.
Yeah, maybe they just wanted. Maybe they needed it on record.
Yeah, but passing
it's
the buck.
Here on record that IPRA says the person who we should be asking is
ourselves.
You. Members of Parliament. So let's ask ourselves then. Let's have another sitting with some allowances so we can ask ourselves what
why
we need
didn't
to
do this.
Yeah.
And
it's 26 minutes to 7. Let's take this quick break and take a look at traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Do you want to study abroad in 2022? Are you confused about what path your career will take in 5 years? The world is changing and so should you. Come meet professors and representatives from universities in the UK, Canada, Australia, and many more virtually from 27th September to 1st October 2021 with Uniserve Education to get first-hand information about the careers of the future. Visit uniserveeducation.com to register. Call 0734 004 003. Uniserve. Master your own destiny.
All right, coming around to 6:30 this morning, and we're seeing that traffic has actually increased on many of these streets as we see it. On Mombasa Road, starting to build up. Langata Road, where there was nothing, flash of the hand, and it's jam-packed all the way, at least beyond the Wilson Airport through to the Timor roundabout. All right, coming out of that, it's not too bad, though. Going towards Bagathi Way, it looks good all the way until the roundabout on Gong Road at the City Mortuary. That's fine. As you go towards Community, also building up just a bit, but it's clear into the city. All right, Uhuru Highway, there was an absolute mess yesterday. Looks really good at this time. We're seeing a little bit of traffic at that Bunyala Road roundabout. Aerodrome Road is free as air. As you get into the city, it should be all right. In the middle of the city, however, those roads that touch each other here and there, a little bit of traffic building up. Jogo Road looking good, especially as you get to the roundabout, but it's building up around Botella, just past the Makadara train station. Outer Ring looks good. You're going to be able to get into the city without too much of a headache. It's building up on the Thika Superhighway. However, at that Muthui Square junction, that's where we see a lot of traffic now. Kiambu Road looking good. You'll get stopped only when you get to the junction. Pass survey, you're clear. Let's talk in a bit and see what it looks like. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay,
Nairobi.
24/7. I don't know whether you've seen these conversations on social media or even seen people by your own observation. There has been an influx of foreigners in the country who look Pakistani or something like that, who come in, they take up places, hotel, Airbnbs, in estates. You see them walking up and down during the day, and then they go and a new batch comes. And people have been asking themselves, so what's happening? Who are these? Who are that? The day before yesterday, on Monday, government spokesperson Cyrus Aguna said these foreigners who started landing in large numbers at JKIA several weeks ago are tourists with valid papers. Mm-hmm. These are just tourists. Okay. They have valid papers to be in the country as tourists. Okay? Stop asking many questions. So they come in, if you operate an Airbnb, you'll get someone who asks you whether you can host a couple of people. And then they go after a while. Okay. It's been going around on social media. So you'll see them walking up and down the estates, sometimes in the evening or during the day, from where they live, and then they will leave the country.
Just hold it.
Ask.
Tourists.
Yes.
They're tourists, yes.
All right.
With valid papers.
That's fine. I got that. And the tourism that has brought them to Kenya is which one?
Is our
Safari,
beautiful weather.
The sun throughout the year.
And our estates.
It does not have to be animals.
Yes.
It's just coming to experience the culture and the weather
I'm
and
seeking to understand
the sights and sounds and smells of Nairobi.
The estates.
Yes.
The estates. Eh?
Yes.
And they are predominantly just men.
Yes. A source at the immigration department yesterday told the nation that these are Pakistanis and they are workers in Saudi Arabia. So they are en route to Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia is not allowing visitors, people coming through from Pakistan, Indonesia, Brazil, Turkey, Lebanon, Egypt, India, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, and Vietnam. They are not allowed entry into Saudi Arabia at present directly. But people from Kenya can go into Saudi Arabia. However, as you land there, you need to show that you have quarantined and you have tested negative for COVID-19.
So essentially the quarantine.
So, according to this source at the immigration department, these are casual laborers headed for Riyadh. But because Saudi Arabia has banned direct flights from Pakistan, they travel through Kenya. And then when they come here to quarantine before proceeding to Saudi Arabia, after isolation bills proved too much for them in Dubai. So initially they'd go to Dubai, isolate there, and then they cross over. But Dubai accommodation was too high. So in Kenya, you come, Airbnb, cheap, faster. Operate and go. The health ministry says they are not involved in the quarantine arrangement between Kenya and the Asians roaming in Nairobi, Machakos, and other neighboring counties. Health ministry officials are saying, we don't know who these people are. We are not aware there's anything to do with quarantine that should be happening. The health ministry said it's neither aware nor involved of this plan. Arrival of foreigners in the country is under Ministry of Interior, and as long as they meet the health requirements, we have no control over that. This is according to the Acting Director General of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth. Ministry of Health says quarantine, it is our purview, but we are not aware about these ones. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, government spokesman, these are just tourists.
They're okay. They have
Now,
valid papers. They're fine.
Are you seeing what where we're heading here with this story.
Yep.
If indeed these are people who are transiting through the country to isolate and quarantine and then go, number one, it's a good thing because it's income for the hospitality sector in the country.
Sure.
It's good. However, it needs to be managed quarantine and isolation. Otherwise, if they are not quarantining, if they're just up and down and milling about, then you have missed the whole point. And this is where the Ministry of Health then is put on the spot. And the National Emergency Response Committee on COVID-19, which has not been disbanded, is also on the spot. The Task Force on COVID-19 Management, which has not been disbanded, is also on the spot. How can you have people who are coming here and clear everybody plus their child can see them. They're here, and they're quarantining, they're here for a couple of days, they go, and you're not managing the quarantine. You have not informed the heads of Nyumba Kumi in the various estates. Okay, so this is the plan. People are just wondering, okay, so how come we have suddenly and very many people living with us? You don't explain.
It's a bit suspect.
Yeah.
To be honest. And it doesn't, look, in as much as we say, yeah, you're welcoming the revenue, welcoming, profile of Kenya as an amicable destination and such, it doesn't bode well in terms of the optics, especially when you've been fighting this whole COVID-19 appearance.
Yep.
Then you're saying that you're offering a haven for quarantine to allow them go to another country, but they're walking about.
You're not managing that
Not
quarantine.
managing it at all. At all.
Because they can do walks. Exercise is important.
fine.
It's part of
But
the
I
whole
think it's a
regime.
little bit more in terms of what we've been seeing in the pictures than
Yeah.
just taking a walk in the evening.
Explain to people, in fact, even explain to neighbors, let them know this is what is happening. So we have visitors, they're coming, they're quarantined, and this is what we've told them they need to do.
Are we not back to that same discussion about communication?
Yes, we are.
Communication and the lack of it.
Interestingly enough, is that, even this communication that we are seeing coming from our good friend, Colonel Oguna's office, is that it has come again after questions have been asked by members of the public. What's going on here?
Yep.
Had people not asked what's happening, that explanation would have gone through the window.
And is he the one to actually respond to that question?
It's interesting.
He's a spokesman.
Yes, he's a spokesman.
Yeah.
Visitors coming into the country.
We have many things. Many people would be.
He can
involved
explain.
in-
Basically,
he
we can say he can take up that job and explain. So this is what is happening. So we have this opportunity. We are finding that the people are preferring to come to Kenya as a destination for quarantine. Now, anybody who would like to offer this service, you can come forth, you can register here, people can find you here, and this is how you can manage the people as they come in and as they leave, and this is what is expected. Clear.
It's true. Plus, he would give a joint. You would say that it would be a joint. So you have Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you have Ministry of Interior, you have Ministry of Health, all of those saying we are aware of the situation, and then he speaks on behalf of everybody. Very possible. However, if you have Ministry of Health saying something else, coming after his
Ministry of Health says, we don't know.
Don't know what's happening here.
Immigration not speaking, that means Interior not speaking. Foreign Affairs not clear. Come on, you could just manage it better. In fact, you could even find that this could be an opportunity where people, it's a free market, yes, but people already know. I have facilities, I'm running rentals, I have Airbnb, I have a hotel. I can take advantage of this.
Right,
and this is how best to manage and to also protect my staff during this whole period. Bleh.
That's about the
Colonel Cyrus Aguna, I'm sure you're listening to us. You always do. This is what we're telling you. I think that communication has been bungled. You want to take a look at something else, CT, before we take this break? Let's take the break. It's 7:15, okay? Kenya's biggest conversation. CT will be telling us what he's looking at in the Business Daily. He has it today. Hey, it's been a while, eh? Huh? Yeah. Welcome back, Business Daily.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical.
Spice FM, Malindi. .5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Well, I was looking at something. Well, I was looking at three things, really. And why I hesitated was I was trying to figure out which one should I look at first.
Okay.
But let's go with something that I have always had an interest in. Right. This has to do with the production of power. This is an article. First of all, it's an article in the Star.
All right.
Independent producers make a kill from Kenya power purchases.
Right.
I found this reporting a bit puzzling because it's merely stating something that I think we know. But what I found interesting was how it is the reasoning behind the buying of power from independent producers by Kenya Power, independent producers whose costs of production and hence the overall cost of what it is that Kenya Power buys from them is a whooping amount in the billions. Let me just read so that you understand.
Okay.
Independent power producers are minting millions, should have said billions, from sale of electricity to Kenya Power. A fresh analysis of its 2020 annual report shows. Okay? Kenya Power 2020 annual report.
Okay.
Now, this is about the units that it buys, okay? And it is being said that it pays up to 35 times more than that is the cost of what it buys from the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KenGen. But as the story goes on, see, it caught my attention because it was giving the impression that they're choosing to buy electricity from power producers who sell it expensively. But as you read it further, you realize these independent power producers, again, have higher costs than KenGen.
Okay.
When KenGen came into being, it actually took over this issue of producing power from Kenya Power itself. Kenya Power used to do this job.
Yeah.
So some of these startup costs and cost of production weren't really that high.
And they're government born.
Serikali kuu,
All right.
as we call it. Right? However, it also states that 48% of the power that is actually bought is actually gotten from KenGen. So I looked at this headline and says, but this headline is misleading.
Okay. And there should be a separation. When you say independent power producers, I'm sure the story is trying to finger the thermal generators. Those who use heavy fuels to generate power.
Yes.
Iber Africa, Gulf Energy, Gulf Power.
Those are the ones who are actually mentioned here. Yes.
But then, Lake Victoria Wind Power is actually an independent power producer.
It is.
And it is using wind.
It is.
Okay.
And wind is not expensive.
Yeah. They're not selling it as at such a high cost, though.
No.
Okay. Continue the story.
So, what I'm saying is, President Uhuru in March set up a task force to look into these very matters that we're discussing.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, again, the issue of power and why it is at some point power costs what it does is something logical that can actually be explained without the nefarious implications coming in.
Yeah.
All right?
Yep.
We have independent power producers for a purpose.
Yep.
Okay? There was a point where KenGen could not actually do this thing on their own.
Yep.
That is the truth. That we now have a situation where we really have a little more than we actually need. Okay?
And stable power supply.
Yes. It's a new situation. I looked at this article and I said, you know what this article ought to have probably said? all this information, what it starts with, what's in the middle, and what comes at the end, okay, is that perhaps more conversations about power production and how it is this thing can be streamlined. In my mind, it's what ought to have been the center of discussion, as opposed to trying to bring out because it seems like an allegation that there are people who are being overpaid. Now, by the way, when you see a subtitle as the utility firm spent 93.9 billion, you feel higher. You mean that's the amount of money.
Been given 93 billion shillings
to
spend as they would.
Yeah, but 48% of that went to KenGen. Yes.
Still, quite. If you look at the amount that Kenya Power is buying per unit from KenGen versus how much they are buying per unit from some of these producers, it's high.
It's very high. If you look at the comparison,
it's extremely high. But then there are very many other questions behind it and the reasons and all. And I think, like you're saying, City, this is everybody who talks about this power and expensive power and all conversation ought to give it a 360 and even give that historical perspective. 97, 98, 96, Kenya was having power rationing.
We had outages you had more outages than you had power.
It was clear that we are rationing power in Kenya. And there was a program being released by the government. So tomorrow, this area, you're not going to have power between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Right.
Today, the only time there's outage is because of a scheduled maintenance by Kenya Power.
And you're told.
Not because of shortage of generated supply. So those are conversations that we need to have. Maybe we can actually even delve a bit deeper into it in the next hour and then see how we can do this. I have a story here that's quite interesting.
Please.
Hey.
Wow, okay.
2001.
Right.
Bridget Korn, an Austrian, came to Kenya as a tourist to enjoy the white sandy beaches of the Indian Ocean.
You see?
During the visit, she meets Kahindi Msanzu Nduria, who was then a tour guide and a boat operator at a beach hotel in the north coast. The two fall in love. The couple spent their time in different hotels whenever Miss Korn was in the country. She got interested in establishing a second home in Kenya after falling in love with the coast's warm climate and the white sandy beaches. The lovebirds, therefore, decided to buy land where their dream home would be built. For a start, the woman claims that she gave Nduria some 450,000 shillings. When she was away in Austria, she would send him money for the project, their house and rental units. She trusted him to do the construction and follow up on the registration of the property. Once the project was completed, the couple differed, and the woman discovered Nduria had registered this property in his name, leaving her out. The relationship soured at that point, and the woman decided to claim the property. She filed a case before the Environment and Land Court in Mombasa, seeking several orders to secure the property. It was first filed in 2009 before it was transferred to the Lands Court. According to court records, the two were lovers living together as husband and wife between 2003 and 2008. Ms. Korn sought a declaration that she was the rightful owner of the property, but Nduria said, "Apana, I am the rightful owner of this property." Nduria says, yes, she gave me some money. She wanted me to buy a vehicle, but I decided the best thing for me to do is to invest in a piece of land.
Okay.
Ms. Korn says that she would wire money to him for the construction. He says, I went through my own ways of finding money for construction. Yes, I'd sometimes receive some money from her, and then I'd decide whether to put it in construction or not. But it was basically my project. It was not hers. Ms. Korn brought a witness to court, Mr. Patrick Kerr, who testified on behalf of Korn, saying the property was developed by money she provided. Her bank statements showing how she was wiring money for the project was, however, not produced. Mr. Nduria, he says, look, Korn is not my business associate in any venture. Therefore, I am not obligated to render any accounts to her. She is neither a resident nor a holder of a work permit, and her status is that of a tourist. Wherefore, she has no locals to reside, work, or operate a business in Kenya. Now, she's claiming that this is her business.
How?
She does not have any legal standing to run a business in this country. This is my business. Okay. Can you please tell her?
She doesn't have legal standing.
The judge, Justice Musnyao, agreed with all those stories and said, well, Ms. Korn, I'm sorry, but you have not adduced any evidence here to show that you actually one, invested in this property, and two, that you had any business dealings with him. Number three, this gentleman that you've brought here, Mr. Patrick Kerr, he's only giving a side of the story of what you told him. He did not transfer any money. He did not receive any money from you and then gave it to Nduria. So he is just a hearsay witness.
He's not a material witness.
He's not a material witness. So you have not produced any evidence here to show that.
So I cannot help you.
Yep. So Miss Corn has lost the case, has lost the property, has lost a lover. Yes. Yes, City.
The moral of the story.
Actually,
keep all your evidence.
No, it's not even just that. There are very many stories that you will hear of if you have lived at the coast of young men and women who have a job description. Both men and women, they're known as beach boys.
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay? There was a story of such an individual from Lamu who was involved in a tragic case of some young lady who comes from a prominent family who also passed away under circumstances that I believe those matters are still in court.
The inquest is still ongoing, yes.
Yes. Now, the stories of investments and doing business together with these partners that these women, predominantly women, and many men who come to the coast on holiday, many don't get to the newspapers.
Yep.
But they are not few. Okay? An arrangement is arrived at, what we in Kenya call a local arrangement. Okay? Now, the local arrangement has a local understanding. Then somebody gets wise on you and does a complete about turn.
Yep.
And by the time someone is talking about the legality of the matter, this whole story was not based on anything legal. It was based on a social understanding. These people were friends.
Yep.
At that time, you thought that it was your heart that ruled the day. And now wanted to invest.
The heart isn't very useful for thinking. That's
It
the
really
whole
isn't.
point.
It really
It's not.
isn't.
It doesn't really help in that department. It's good for other things, but thinking, no. Logic, no. In fact, it's if you want an ally when you want to apply logic, it's the last place you don't use your heart in such matters.
And usually there's an age gap.
Yes.
The people who are
Significant.
falling victim to this are people who are elderly,
Elderly.
who are not in their first, second, or third relationship.
And who are not in their first youth either.
And they're not in their first youth.
But
they have some
somehow-
experience in life, but somehow
they're able to get wrapped up in this. Somehow.
And what is of interest is that you will find that this young gentleman, or if it's a young lady, with again an elderly gentleman, okay, you will find that they are in multiple relationships.
Yes.
For significant purposes.
If you speak to them, if you grew up on the coast and you happen to know these people, I did, okay, you would find that someone who's very entrepreneurial would have 3 such women, or if it's a young lady, 3 men, and who came at different
They come
times of the
during
year.
different
For
times of
different
the year.
things.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Relationships
But
of
money is
significant
wired
purpose.
throughout the year.
Yes. In fact, one of the reasons why you would get the number of young men whom I came across at that particular point in time, many of them had problems reading and writing the English language.
I like the way
But
he
they could
says
speak.
They had problems.
No, they could speak German fluently.
Speak German fluently.
But and Italian
And-
fluently, but writing and reading the English language
A bit of a sports
bit
problem.
tricky.
Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room with Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, and CT Muga. We've been looking at the newspaper headlines. We're looking at the big stories that are shaping the world today, around the country and around the world. Keep it right here for the news that's coming up shortly, and then we will delve a little bit into the power issues and what's been covered in the papers as we look at other stories in politics as well. Good morning, 7 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has been accused of misleading the public into thinking that Parliament is delaying in passing laws, hence slowing the Commission's activities. Speaking in Parliament, Minority Leader John Mbadi emphasized that the only bill in Parliament was legislation on the use of election funds, and that was being addressed. Mbadi called on the IEBC to appear before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to explain in detail what it needs from Parliament to ensure Kenyans get a free and fair election.
I'm standing here to seek for your intervention to have the Oversight Committee of this House, which is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, to intervene and invite the leadership of IBC, and so that we are clear that IBC has no excuse at all. We don't want excuses, Mr. Speaker. And I can see already, chances are that if we just keep quiet, chances are that IBC is going to have excuses again for conducting sham election next year.
According to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee Deputy Chairman Opondo Kaluma, the meeting is likely to take place on Tuesday next week. Now, legislators have agreed to amend some of the provisions in the National Insurance Fund Bill, which was read for the third time in the August House yesterday. Lawmakers agreed to amend the section which proposes that the NHIF Chief Executive Officer be appointed by the Ministry of Health instead of by the board. Kimani Ichung'wah is Kikuyu MP.
If you go to the bill, clause 10.1, the bill states that there shall be a chief executive officer whose terms and conditions of service shall be determined by the board in consultation with the relevant government agencies. What I am amending, Honorable Speaker, is to say that there shall be a CEO of the fund who shall be appointed by the board, therefore qualifying that the appointment will be done by the board, because when you say there shall be, tomorrow John Mbadi, Kimani Ichung'wah can walk into NHIF and say I'm the CEO.
Parliament also decided to ensure that every Kenyan pays 6,000 shillings annually to cover medical expenses. It means that not only the employees will be required to do so, but anyone 18 years of age and older. Moses Cheboy is the Deputy Speaker.
4 be amended as proposed by the Honorable Mbadi. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? And as our contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it, and I proceed to put the global question, which is that clause 4 as amended be now part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye, and as our contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it.
Meanwhile, Deputy President William Ruto wants lawmakers to pass the NHIF bill in order to implement the government's universal health coverage. According to Ruto, the new rules proposed in the bill will benefit Kenyans, especially those at the grassroots level who are going through various challenges when seeking medical care. Speaking during a meeting with Nairobi small business owners, Ruto also stressed the need to uplift the grassroots through the bottom-up economic model.
Kama hauna plan, ondoa jam. Ondoa jam. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Tuko pamoja. Hawa watu wametuzoea vibaya na wametuchelewesha. Sasa miaka 4 tumepoteza tukihangaika na rege. Tubadilishe katiba, sijui wadozi gani wapate nafasi gani. Sisi tunawaambia safari hii, hiyo mambo yenu ya vyeo na kubadilisha katiba na kugawana mamlaka itangojea.
The judiciary has so far heard over 144,000 cases and made over 31,000 judgments and rulings through the virtual courts deployed in the 170 courts across the country. The Standard has established that as of June 2021, some 67,299 cases were filed through the e-filing system, which is available in all courts in Nairobi County. This means with a simple smartphone and the internet connection, some court users receive a link to join a court session. Once the session is over, they continue with their other businesses, having had saved in time and cost. In March 2020, the judiciary fully automated its operation in a shift that was aimed at improving efficiency as well as stopping revenue leakage. Now, the Registrar of Political Parties, Nderitu, has finally announced the complete dissolution of NASA Alliance. In a statement, Nderitu said all parties had agreed to break up the coalition after ODM's Raila Odinga, Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi from ANC, Moses Wetangula from Ford Kenya, and Isaac Ruto of CCM signed a joint agreement to disband NASA. The leaders also agreed to share the money allocated to the alliance. Now, 2 top US generals have said they recommended keeping a force of 2,500 troops in Afghanistan ahead of the full US withdrawal in August. Testimony by General Mark Milley and General Frank McKenzie to Congress seemed to contradict President Joe Biden, who said he did not recall any such advice. The general said that the army will protect the US citizens regardless.
Reconstituted Al-Qaeda or ISIS with
aspirations to attack the United States is a very real possibility. And those conditions, to include activity in ungoverned spaces, could present themselves in the next 12 to 36 months.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto.
And we are officially in traffic hour this morning. Everybody leading into the CBD today. Langata Road is packed and heading into the city, as is Ngong Road. Bagathi Way is still looking pretty good. As you come off that packed Langata Road, you can use that as an option to get into the city quicker. Coming out of Ngong Road into Community, it's also building up into the city without too much of a problem, at least for now. Jugo Road, much more full than it was before. We're also seeing the Thika Superhighway spilling up well over onto Outer Ring Road today. So that traffic coming in from there is quite something this morning, and it has happened in the span of less than an hour. We're also looking at it coming off of the Muthui area onto Kiambu Road and then out towards the Pangani underpass. Mombasa Road still piling up as well. We're looking at a North Airport Road issue today. Outer Ring also. A lot of traffic there this morning. Let's take a quick skip into Mombasa. It looks all right. 3 ferries up for service today. KFS says, don't forget, pay your ferry toll, *712#. Don't use cash. Let's look west into Kisumu, where things are moving along quite well as well. Not too much of a problem. Onto Obote, out of the city and inbound as well. No traffic this morning. Things are moving well. We'll come back and take a look at what it looks like in Nairobi in about half an hour. But for now, it's the normal musings of Wednesday morning traffic. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
8 minutes after 7,
the
Kenya's
only way
biggest
to start
conversation.
your...
It's the second hour of the show today, and C.T. Muga has today's proverb.
Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself from flies.
Where is this from?
Africa, of course.
It's one of those African proverbs.
What is African proverb? Yes.
Okay. Even the king of the forest, the lion,
protects itself from flies.
Okay.
And the creator ensured that it would be armed with a tool. It's called a tail.
Yeah.
Swish about.
One of the things that the tail does very, very effectively.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, since we are not created with tails as human beings,
No.
no. Those who are in positions of importance, like the king of the forest, will have a fly whisk.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
That explains its tail.
Well, same function.
Actually, the fly whisk was borrowed from the tail. Just observing, and you're like,
that thing seems to be effective.
I wish I had a tail.
You look like you would be
And
well
then the next thing,
accustomed
you
to
just start
having
saying
one, my friend.
Harambe. Harambe.
Fly whisk.
Harambe. Saidisha Kenya. Ndugu zanguni. It's an interesting one. Before you tell us about, you want to tell us about the power story in detail?
I do.
Okay.
Every time we hear the story of electricity in this country, it's a tale of war.
War?
WOE.
Got it.
Yes. It's a tale of war because, one, you are always told the ending at the beginning. And the ending is, it's going to cost you more. You are going to pay more per kilowatt. And the story that I was reading, or the story I referred to earlier on, now goes into some detail of explaining why it is you are always paying more.
Sure.
Okay? It tells you. But this story, 2/3 of a page, cannot tell you the whole story of power generation in this country. And the history behind it, and why some of these things came into being. How KenGen was formed, how all these independent power producers came into the country, how there was this push by successive governments, because it wasn't one government, to try and ensure that people could actually get power, people could get electricity.
Yep.
We called it the story of rural electrification. Now, it doesn't come out clearly, but this path, rural electrification, given the gigantic nature of the undertaking, it was bound to push the cost of electricity because it was more a social project than it was a business project. As in, let people get electricity, we will worry about those costs later. Now, who was bearing the cost, for instance, of ensuring that A, the infrastructure that makes it possible for power to reach homes was put in place? It was Kenya Power. Who was going to ensure then that with the power that we had, that more power could be generated so that the new needs that were going to arise could be met? Now, when you have a time when power is consistent and it's something you more or less take for granted, it is easy to forget the path that it took. And that circuitous path is one of the largest contributors to the cost of electricity in this country. But where the problem arises is not this story, because this story, again, is in the public domain. It's something you can follow and understand. It is the absence of clear communication and explanation as to how these things are done. Because if you give reasons and explain well and say, this is how it is, this is what we are doing, and it isn't shrouded in those meetings that we were told, here I'm going to be facetious, where people met more times than their days in a year, okay, to try and determine how certain changes should come about. Now, those things obscure the real story, and they present a really negative image of everything that is bad within the power sector. And yet, the good thing is we actually have power. And in this country, we actually have more power than we actually need.
Yeah. Our current installed capacity is more than our current demand.
Yes.
Okay. It's a story that I think has many sides.
Yes.
So first of all, there's a side of what is the component of taxes and levies, again, in the power bill, but that's on one side. Then let's talk about the journey that the country has taken in generating power, in ensuring that there is that supply, and even the plans for the future. Just like we said, in the mid-90s, the biggest source of power in the country was hydro. The Seven Forks dams. We didn't even have the Takwell.
No, we didn't.
Even to date, that Takwell story, it has eaten so much money.
That
no one even knows.
story is not very different from the Aurora and Kimorera.
Is those ones.
Not very different.
So the Seven Forks dams were our source of power in the country. You get some poor rainfall. It affects water in the dams. It affects, of course, the generating capacity of the hydro generating dams stations along the Seven Forks dams. That's what was happening in the mid-90s. So we'd have power shortages. We'd have scheduled outages called rationing. And that's a time when the source of emergency power also now started coming in as a conversation to have. That's when you'll find some of the biggest thermogenerating companies were set up in the country. Now, I think one of them is Iber-Africa, which is in an industrial area. If you look at what they were coming to do and look at where they are positioned, generating power, putting it into the grid so that we can at least supply power to the industrial parts of the city, which require power, a lot of power, and need the machines to be on consistently. You're an investor. You're putting up this huge investment, billions of shillings. You've come in. The only client that you're going to have by law is one, Kenya Power. This is the only person that you can sell power to. You're setting up a power plant. What are you going to do? The one thing that you want to do is to secure a contract that secures this investment.
For the long
you
term.
are going to buy my power. Are you going to buy my power? Yes. I need to recoup this investment. Are you going to make sure that I can recoup the investment? Yes.
And what if you don't buy my power?
What if you don't buy my power?
You still
What
pay
happens?
me something.
Yes, because for me
Yes.
to realize my investment, it takes X number of years.
Yes.
So for this length of time,
yes.
What guarantees?
What guarantees do you have?
Yeah. So even if you don't buy my power, then let's set it up in such a way that I will still be receiving something that will allow me recoup this investment, whether you buy my power or not.
Because you're the only customer I have. If you don't buy, I can't go to the other
dead.
guy and say, oh, by the way, I'm selling power. I can't. By law, I'm not allowed to. So we started with those. And then come in the Kibaki administration and the reforms in the power sector come in. Let's separate who's generating, who's transmitting, who is selling. Okay? Generation, Kengen. Transmission, Ketraco. Selling and last mile, Kenya Power. Good structure, good plan. Let's also look what are our needs and how do we go towards diversifying our mix of power. We cannot keep relying on water. We have a resource called geothermal. Can we have a geothermal generating authority? Yes. Can you go and make sure that you can check for us where the geothermal is? Can you invest in drilling the geothermal? Once you've done it, then Kengen takes over and starts generating power. So we increased. Today, our biggest source of power comes from geothermal. And then we have hydro. And then now the others. We have wind, Lake Turkana. We have wind, Kengen operating some turbines at Ngong. We have wind in other areas. We have solar. Garissa, we have a solar farm in Garissa. We have the Turkana wind farms. We have then the thermal generators set up around the country. What's the importance of the thermal generators? And the conversations that you'll hear from the people who are in the know will tell you these diesel generators, they're not here to be the big source of power.
No.
They're here to be the minority source of power. But the importance of having them is because of the emergency. If something happened at Kiambere and one of the turbines does not come on, there is a dip in the generated power. What are you going to do to meet that demand?
Those guys kick in.
Those guys kick in and their machines can be switched on and they come on quicker.
Immediately.
So they have to install and be ready for that moment when you tell them, boss, I need in the next 2 hours. They can switch on their machines. Now, if you're coming to invest in such a venture, it's a multi-billion shilling venture. You come and put it up, and your job is to be an emergency. It's basically you're being told, bring ambulances and keep them parked.
Them there, just in case we need them.
Just in case I'll need an ambulance. City, can you put an ambulance at Standard Group Center? Just in case, we have an emergency. So I have bought a vehicle, I've equipped it, I've kitted it.
For that purpose.
I have brought in EMS staff. They sit in that vehicle. For that purpose, I need guarantees.
Because I can't do anything else. Number one, I can't do anything else. Number two, I cannot take said vehicle and move it.
You can't use it as a matatu.
You're waiting on me, and this emergency, by value of definition, means we do not know the time.
We don't know when
it would happen. We don't know when. So I just have to be there. And in order for me to again recoup my investment, then I need a guarantee that even if the year goes by and you don't call upon me, I need to know that there will be something coming to me that justifies this investment that I have put in place. Contracts.
Those contracts are important. I would say that if I was an investor, I would insist on a contract. And the contracts that we have, for example, with some of these smaller thermal power generators is X number of years, I recoup my investment, then you can take it over. It's a build, operate, transfer. You can take it over after those number of years. But in the meantime, in those 20 years, as I'm sitting there as an emergency, let's agree, because I need to keep my machines running, you will be taking X amount of power as a minimum. And then my installed capacity is this much. So whenever you need me to ramp up my production, my generation, just call on me, I'll switch on the machines. For me to switch on the machines immediately, I need to maintain my machines in serviceable order. My machines are there in serviceable order. So at least recoup, that's a sunk cost. For me to be able to generate power that fast, my raw material is heavy fuels. I need to have huge tanks full of heavy fuel. That is a sunk cost. I bought the oil, I put it in these tanks, waiting for you to tell me I have an emergency. Sunk cost. Factor in all those things. I think the question, and I think that's what even the president's brief to the team was, look at the contracts. and determine when the contracts are signed, are all these deals above board? Or are contracts, just like you keep saying, CT, when we're signing these contracts, we need an ambulance at Standard Group Center, yes. And CT Muga has an ambulance, yes. But, okay, so let's look at the details. Does it benefit the Standard Group Center? Does it benefit CT? Or does it benefit CT more than the Standard Group Center? In the long and short of it. But how much we are spending per month on having this ambulance here equate to us buying our own ambulance and putting it there. So it's the details of the contracts that should be open, and those contracts are not public.
No, they're not, and they ought to be. And one of the details of those contracts that has been contentious is the currency that dominates that whole process.
Yes.
It's domiciled in the dollar. Now, the problem with that is every time there are fluctuations, it means what you then end up paying, because as we're paying in Kenyan shillings, is more.
Yep.
And it's significantly more. So when you're talking about the task force that the president had set up, these are some of the things that we're looking at. And some of these contracts end in 2032. Okay? Again, when you're looking at the contracts, I think in all fairness, when some of these contracts were signed, the reason why there's such a huge debate about them was we don't know what on earth was signed.
Yeah.
What you do know is that when it ends and you're thinking, okay, the 32 we get. So why that length of time?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's not years, it's decades.
Yep.
Why do you need that length of time?
Why do you need 20 years, 25 years to run this thing?
Yes, why?
Well, of course,
also, the details of it. At the end of the 25 years, what are you going to leave me with?
Yes. Is it a shell? Is it what?
Yes.
Dilapidated machinery? What are you going to leave us with? See, again, if these things were in the public domain, these questions wouldn't be asked because you would know.
Right. But then you have to also ask yourself that there's been a constant push and pull to have the details of this contracting made public. And by the time you're asking that, then it obviously means that they are shrouded in secrecy. And why are they done in that manner? That could be the answer to the question that you initially asked. Is it benefiting somebody? Is there a friend of the system? Or are there friends of the system who are constantly given the benefit when these contracts then are instituted? And that is why they're kept secret. Are there costs which needn't be that are in these contracts that would be very clear to the public later that we could actually buy our own, that we could actually have our own and you wouldn't need to depend on a third party to bring in that good or service, right? So by not making it public, you continue to have these...
You open it to those...
These guys who are benefiting.
Speculation.
That's what it is.
And you may actually find that the contract is completely above board. In the end,
can find that it's solid.
You may find that is a very solid contract. We got a fair deal.
But by virtue of the fact that you keep it under wraps and that you keep it silent and above all the calls that come to make it public, you choose to ignore, then what are you going to do? People are going to speculate and say, all right, well, that must mean that somebody who is a friend of the system is benefiting.
It lends itself to some serious conspiracy because one of the conspiracies that one has heard that talks along the grapevine has been that some of these companies that come to do business in Kenya are not really foreign companies. They're registered in those foreign lands, but the owners or many of the owners could very well just be locals.
Yes.
So if you were to make certain things public, you might also need to make the ownership of these organizations public. Now, when it is explained, then you puncture such conspiracies. They don't even have, those conspiracies will not even have room to breathe. But so long as they're shrouded, why is the SGR contract such an issue? Same reason.
Same.
People keep asking, the MES, why is it such an issue? Same reason. So long as there isn't an explanation, look, note, I'm not saying a viable explanation, just an explanation.
Just have some transparency.
And say, this is what happened.
Yes.
Yes.
When something has some opacity to it, you'll always ask yourself, so what's behind those doors?
What is really going on here?
Yeah, what's behind those doors? So the president set up this team that's headed by John Gumi, and we'll have 15 other members drawn from the private and public sectors, including retired Judge Aaron Ringera, former PricewaterhouseCoopers executive Ann Erickson, and James McFay. All of these are to review these agreements and then come and say, so we have found this one needs this one. The details of this contract are not good or not of benefit. These ones are.
Say what's on your mind, Eric.
What's on my mind is the issue of power, just like you started saying earlier, is whenever we talk about power, we talk about power from looking at it from those angles of power. Number one is expensive. That's a fact. Okay? So why does it have to be this expensive? If we say that we're generating power using renewable means, we have a high mix of geothermal and wind and solar and water.
Surely.
Why is our power so expensive? And then we ask ourselves, so is it because of these guys who are only supplying how much? Just about 5% of the power into the mix, or 17% of the power into the mix is coming from the thermals. The other is coming from government and these renewable sources. But we pick on those smaller guys as the reason why our power is expensive. And then we come in and say, yes, they've actually made the bigger chunk of the money that has been paid by Kenya Power for power in a year. Despite them being the minority suppliers, they've actually made the majority of the money.
And that is actually not also true.
And then you ask yourself, so is that the case? How much of that money has actually gone to this independent power suppliers? Why?
And you talk about independent power suppliers, they comprise what, 28%? 72% is us.
Yep.
Okay? Now, again, the truth about power generation, power supply in this country, because of this, well, it's now appearing like a conspiracy of silence or opacity, as Eric mentioned. What then gets injected into the conversation are such a large diversity of confusing and conflicting issues that you're never really sure what it is you're hearing, what is actually the truth and what isn't. At least I find myself in that position. But when you look closely, you realize that there's something we forget, and this one I have to repeat, that at the end of this story, we have steady, regular supply of electricity. Albeit expensive, but we have it.
We have power. In fact, at some point, Mwai Kibaki, when he was president, he said, I'd rather we have expensive power, but we have power. Other than saying that we don't have power because we were looking for cheap power. We have power throughout the year. We have power. It's only the inefficiencies of management of the Kenya Power that we end up having so many, scheduled maintenance. You have a scheduled maintenance in one area 17 times in a month.
Well, there you go.
Like,
but you know that there are countries today, we're not talking about in the past, there are countries today who don't even have scheduled maintenance. They just do not have power.
They don't have power. They don't know.
There's no scheduled maintenance. There is, you get power when you get it. Don't ask questions before or after that. So I can understand the rationale behind we'd rather have expensive power than no power at all, because essentially you're not able to run your economy, you're not able to run industry, you're not able to run businesses that depend on this power 100%. And what you then have is that people then go to independent sources of power, number one, or they have to look for alternate power sources whereby the state is not able to provide. So yes, indeed, you'd rather have it expensive than not have it at all.
Yes.
Because the situation that you look at in countries like Niger, Nigeria, Guinea, parts of Ghana, whereby you have huge countries who supply for an entire national grid of another country, then are not able to supply power in the countries where. Why? Because of mismanagement of this very same thing that we are talking about. Because of corruption, number one, because of mismanagement, number two, because of these same contracts that we're talking about. Because all of the revenue that's coming in, we're going to pay these independent people, many of them buddies with the state, and then you're forgetting about whom the majority of the supply must go to, who, by the way, are paying for it every time they get it and when they are not.
Yeah.
So yes, you'd rather have it expensive, but that it is in constant supply, than not have it at all. And the opposite side of that equation is that you would have those rations that you're talking about on a constant basis. Because you're not able to.
Instability.
Exactly.
That's why I also I'm a very big proponent for the EPRA formula for petroleum. Because it's the same thing. We had gotten to a point where, remember, just a couple of years ago, in the Kibaki administration, where towards the end of the month, like now, and the beginning of the month, you'd have those artificial shortages. Have this word going around that Muthui inaisha. People just rushing to petrol stations and trying to find why. Because we had the same issues. The supply of petroleum into the country was not stable. Now we have stable and steady supply of product in the country. Everywhere, every corner of Kenya, iko mafuta.
And the outlets keep increasing.
And everybody knows. And the outlets keep increasing. And something that you'll notice is that in the last, say, 15, 20 years, the number of Kenyan brands that you see selling petrol and petrol products has shot up tremendously. The multinationals that used to be the dominant players are still dominant. Yes, for example, Shell through Vivo Energy is the biggest, is the market leader today. But the smaller independent Kenyan brands, very many. And this was a government policy. Let's encourage them. So you start setting up a petrol station, but then you don't have the muscle and the financial muscle to bring in a huge tanker to Mombasa to have your oil. So you have to buy from this big guy who has brought his oil. And he's the one who determines whether he wants to sell to you or not, whether he has enough stock to sell to. So we started having those. You have set up a whole petrol station, but you just don't have petrol.
You know.
And when it comes, because you need to recoup your investment, you put in so much money into that sunk cost, you raise your margins a little bit higher. Now you're being more expensive than the big brand. Of course, the big brand is going to cut you out.
They will cut you out. But you know, this discussion, there's an aspect to it that also perhaps requires, should we say, a little attention. Okay? Now, the bit that I'm talking about has to do not so much with power production, but with the legislation around it. You can't just wake up in the morning and set up your own power plant.
You can't.
And even if you try to, it is very difficult.
Right.
But hey, I was talking to an engineer friend of mine, somebody I was in school with, and this was some 10 years ago. He told me something really interesting. He told me, do you know, for you to be able to produce electricity, he asked me, I know where you come from, and how many households are there? Say a radius of say a kilometer. He said, you need 3 meters, okay, of water descending, okay, and asked at what pace, at what speed, okay. He said, so long as it's flowing. Says that drop, said it can produce sufficient electricity to power you
that area
and your neighbors. I said, really? And I asked him, so what would that cost? He said, let me not get your hopes up. There are people who've been trying to do this, but let me just give you a little history. He said, even before independence, what many people don't know, all these tea factories you hear of in Kericho and whatever, those people used to produce their own power.
Yeah.
They didn't rely on the national grid. They were able to say, now, if this was something that we were able to do before independence, should it not be even easier, or should what is produced in the national grid be so cost effective that the idea of setting up your own gig doesn't just make sense? You know, why I consider this to be an issue of discussion, I was looking at how easy it is, to set up a health facility and a school in this country. It's not as though you wake up and you can start it, but it is not. The hindrances are few. If you're determined, you'll be able to set it up. Okay? There aren't roadblocks. But with this one commodity, it is not easy. It is not difficult to set up a petrol station to sell oil. It is actually not difficult. If you have the money and you can. You meet the basic requirements.
Yep.
Try and produce power to sell to the national grid, not even for your own use. And see what you'll be offered in terms of compensation. You'll figure, I might as well just
you'll be frustrated out of the process in order for the monopoly to maintain its position, essentially.
You have actually understood what I was trying to politely put across.
Let's take the break then. 26 minutes to 8 o'clock, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's see what's happening on the roads. This is peak traffic hour, right? Or is it the next one?
It's this one.
It's this one? Into the next?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what's happening on the roads.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Johnny. Johnny. Johnny, hata unisikizi. Ni nini umesoma kwa simu hivyo?
Ni gazeti ya leo napitia.
Aje sasa. Si expert.
Ni 5 bob too.
Keep up with the latest trends and news in health, real estate, finance, business, and entertainment from the convenience of your mobile phone. Dial star 550 star 3 hash to access pull-out sections of the Standard e-paper for only 5 shillings from your telecom line with no additional charges to enable you to stay up to date, informed, and entertained.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice
Sunny
FM.
conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 15 today. It's sunny at 13 in Nakuru, highs of 27 and lows of 13. 14 will be the low in a mostly cloudy Nyeri town, highs of 26 today. In Mombasa, light rain in some parts at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 24. All right, in Malindi, light rain at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Kisumu is sunny at 20, highs of 29 today. And Kakamega, partly sunny conditions at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Not to forget Eldoret, it's sunny at 15, highs of 25 and lows of 12. Kampala is mostly sunny at 23, we'll see lows of 19 and highs of 25. Dar es Salaam still raining at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Lagos this morning is mostly clear at 25, highs of 31. It'll come down to lows of 24. And in Joburg, sunny conditions at 16, highs of 28 and lows of 13. Kinshasa, partly cloudy at 24. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 33. All right, it is indeed traffic hour, jam-packed wherever you want to look at it in Nairobi. We're looking at that whole area coming into Westlands, coming from Kileleshwa out towards State House, into Westlands and out onto Waiyaki Way. Absolute mess this morning. I have a good thing for you, and that's the link road coming out of Red Hill. Use that to get into the city and stay off the drama that is Waiyaki Way if you can. Gong Road also joining this, coming to the city mortuary roundabout out into community. It's slow. Onto Valley Road and into the city, slow as well. This is all coming from Bagadi Way, which folks have chosen to use coming off Langata Road. Aerodrome Road now connecting with the Bunyala Road roundabout out towards Uhuru Highway through Haile Selassie into the city. Absolutely packed. Jogo Road, especially around the train station, is where we see some action this morning. Coming off Mombasa Road as well, an issue. Donholm, Outer Ring, out towards Mayanja and into that whole area today is crazy. We're in the middle of the week and the end of the month, and looks like traffic is going to continue like this for at least another hour. We'll keep an eye on things. Help us out here as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
20 to 8.
94.4 Spice FM.
What's happening in the education sector?
So, teachers and MPs together, they're fighting the TSC back to school plan. Now, remember this whole back to school. We've been in school for about a year now after the break that came about because of COVID. And so we're looking at jam-packed. We're looking at a year of education in 9 months, right? You're going to go on to the next year in a very short period of time. Now, the Teacher Service Commission has come under fire from tutors and MPs over the planned rollout of compulsory refresher courses for all school teachers, right? So now they're saying as school is also coming back, you too must get this refresher course. And they're saying, hold on a minute. And it has to be done for all teachers. A case has been filed at the High Court while a petition is before the National Assembly, both seeking to stop implementation of the Teacher Professional Development Program. Yesterday, MPs questioned the parameters used by the TSC to develop the program and the criteria used to select 4 universities that are to earn billions of shillings from offering the training. So you must go for this training in order for you to be deemed, still viable to teach in Kenyan schools. And it's coming out of where? Your pocket.
Right.
And the training is deemed mandatory according to the TSC in order for you to continue with this. And if you cannot, if you do not, then you cannot teach. Teacher said, hold on a minute. It's not as easy as that. And MPs as well have chimed in and said, no. They've gone to court and they've gone to the National Assembly. They've questioned this criteria and they're demanding to know the method the teacher's employer is used to identify and select the 4 universities that will offer the training. So it's not that they don't want to be trained. They're asking, hold on a minute, why do we have to go to these particular institutions? The lawmakers are reacting to this petition presented by the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET. The petition was read by Emuhaya MP Omboko Milemba, and he is also the KUPPET chairman. And he wants Parliament to direct the Teacher Service Commission to call what? Stakeholder engagement before implementing the program. Everybody must be involved in this. Should you fail to do that, then this thing, we don't want it. The union also wants the TSC to be compelled to meet the costs of the refresher course. So, all right, number one.
You want us to refresh?
You want us to refresh?
Pay.
You pay for it. You want us to refresh? Let us be the ones to decide where we will go and refresh. It will not just come from you. You just tell us to refresh. You pay for it. We will say where we are going. The petitioners accuse the Commission of starting the program without consulting teachers and committing them to pay the burden of how much? Drum roll, please. 6,000 shillings per year. That one, too much for us. We cannot. To complete the 6 modules, it will take 5 years. A teacher will be required to fork out 180,000 shillings in total. The TSC had not made public the consideration it based on in arriving the exorbitant cost per module. Mr. Milemba said teachers are underpaid and that some have stagnated in one job group for up to 20 years. And now you're asking them to bring you 180,000 shillings to refresh. Sorry, it doesn't make sense. They say the commission selected the 4 universities in unclear circumstances despite there being reputable institutions of higher learning countrywide.
What are the 4 universities again?
All right, so, So, the 4 universities that they're looking at, Kenyatta University, Riara University, Kenya Education Management Institute, and I'll find the other one.
Rolling again?
Drum rolling will drum for a while. But those ones, and they're saying, but we should have been able to be involved in how you pick this. Countrywide, there are places that we can all go to get this training and it's being offered.
Why not in the teacher service, teacher training colleges?
Sorry? This is the question that they're asking. And they're across the country, are they not?
Not only across the country, many of them, because of proximity,
are closer
are
to where
easier to
you're
access.
working. Yes. That you work here, you live in this particular area. Should I need to do this refresher course, I can do it at a teacher training college that is not too far from me. So you see how they're seeing that there's some game that's being played here? They don't like it.
Even if it was straightforward, they would see something.
Of course.
You know, in-servicing is what it used to be called before. Okay? Then somewhere along the line, adult learning took on a new turn. The communication age came upon us. And you are now able to study just sitting at home. You didn't have to troop every school holiday to a university or an institution to learn. Okay? That teachers need to be refreshed. They do.
It's a no-brainer.
You don't. There's nothing to argue about there. They do. Every profession. You really do need to be updated, to be upgraded.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
However, it tells you in very many words the unhealthy relationship the Teacher Service Commission has
with its employees.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't look really pretty because these 4 universities then went on ahead and advertised these courses to teachers and said, come one, come all. They are now
select me, don't select the other one.
Voila. So now that's why they're saying, hold on a minute. There was no stakeholder engagement here. Members of Parliament have said public participation was absolutely mandatory in a process like this. Why then did it not happen? You're dealing with hundreds of thousands of teachers around the country. Don't you think they needed a buy-in to say some of the things that you just now have suggested? Why can I now go to then a training institution which is in my vicinity?
Oh, the fourth one I've been told by a teacher is Mount Kenya University.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
All right. So they also, these 4 universities, have been joined in this case that is presented before the High Court.
But let me ask you. Okay, so just like you said, City, first, on the basics, continuous professional development is important for any profession. And in fact, if you look at the lawyers have that. You've got to get some CPD points before you get your license renewed by the LSK. Accountants and auditors have the same. Before you get your license renewed by ISPAC, you have got to go for CPD and you've got to get a certain number of points. In fact, it has also been argued that those of us in the media profession, Media Council of Kenya, should start thinking of such. Instead of just, doing those ad hoc and random, come in because you violated some code, come and we take you through compulsory training. You should have a proper program where you say, as you renew the media, what's it called? The thing that we get?
Accreditation.
The media accreditation.
Okay. Uh-huh.
As you renew the accreditation, let somebody have acquired a certain number of points in CPD, continuous professional development. I think it's the same for teachers. So basics, that's it.
They're not even arguing that at all.
They are saying, don't train us. The second thing is, it's your cost. Lawyers, it's their cost. Accountants, it's their cost. It's your continued professional development. Now, why do you want it to be loaded to the taxpayer? Because when they say the government should pay, that is you and I who are being told to pay for the teachers to continue getting their continuous professional development.
Eric.
You are in the profession, pay for yourself. That's my argument. Thirdly, and this is where now I disagree with the TSC, it is how you roll it out.
Right.
I think just selecting 4 universities that are mostly based in Nairobi and saying that this is where teachers should be going for that, that's...
But you see, Eric,
yes.
you see, this issue is still the remnants of kind of what we spoke about the other day. That you see these murmurings that you continue to hear from teachers.
Yeah.
If you like, say tomorrow that every teacher must have a banana, they will bring issue with it.
Of course.
Why? Because they're still dealing with the dregs of dishonored CBAs. They're dealing with the dregs of low salaries. They're dealing with the dregs of agreements that they had reached that were not honored over and over and over again. So here, if you actually sat down with teachers one-on-one, they'll tell you what you've just said. No, we understand. Training, renewed knowledge is very important. However, anything that you bring and put on the table right now, with the history that they have faced previously, it is going to be met with criticism. It is going to be met with a negative stance because it's coming from the same people who they've seen have shafted them over and over and over again.
It's government. It's basically, overall for me, what I see from teachers is what I see. What I called the other day, the peculiar habits of Kenyans of wanting to push and not take responsibility, but also wanting to say, wanting to oppose any kind of change at any point. You've said it, and City has said it before. It's because you got into a point where you don't trust this government. When the government tells you something, you're thinking, what do you want this time? You don't just say, okay, that sounds good. You're like,
no.
What do you want this time? So teachers are operating from that point of, your first defensive mechanism is to say no. And then now let's see.
Because Because I still have a bad taste in my mouth over what you've done to me over and over and over again, right? Whether it was Nancy Macharia at the helm of the TSC today, or it was somebody else, 10 years ago, it is TSC.
Or it was James Ongwai those days.
Our employer has always treated us in this manner.
It was.
So you can imagine, remember the game you used to play as kids and somebody's just saying no for the sake of saying no. And then when now you change the offer, they're still saying no without actually even listening to what it is that you were saying. Right? The training is good. Maybe we could have had a conversation about who's going to foot the bill. Maybe we would have had a conversation. Maybe we would have had a conversation about where these trainings or where this development is going to take place.
Yeah.
But you've suggested it by mere because you have suggested it, and it has come from you.
And then you've picked some universities. How many of those universities are private?
3.
That also brings in
it brings in a huge issue.
So only Kenyatta is a public university.
Yes.
The others, Riara, Mount Kenya, and
the other is public. Sorry, because it's Kenya Institute of.
No, it's not.
Hold on.
CAM is not.
No, it's not. It's private.
CAM
actually.
is also private.
It's private.
3 private institutions
and 1 public.
And 1 public.
Yeah.
And they're all in the Nairobi.
And all in Nairobi.
All in Nairobi.
How many public universities are offering education courses? How many teacher training colleges do you have where people could actually go for their continuous professional development course?
And let me ask the question.
Ish.
There's this collaboration that universities have, either with university colleges or with other institutions. Surely, are you telling me that public universities cannot have a collaboration with all these teacher training colleges all around the country?
Can.
Of course they can. In this day and age, you don't really have to load that material on a donkey and take it. No. You press a button and that information...
And it's available.
It's available in real time.
All you need to do is have the teachers take some continuous assessment tests.
Eric, can I be a Kenyan just for a second?
Yes, Kenyanize yourself.
Okay. You see, I'm going to delve into a little blame game here. Sometimes we don't see the impact of cascaded impunity. If you have a leadership beginning with the presidency who, for instance, have been reported and have been accused of neglecting court rulings, If you have leadership in the form of governors, in the form of senators, in the form of MPs, in the form of civil servants who seem to be a law unto themselves, what you then do is you have a public service who, so long as somebody has even a thimble of authority, even if it's a speck of authority, my friend, they are going to exercise impunity to the length and breadth of that particular capacity that they have. And they do not care. Essentially, it's like we've told you, you want to complain, you go ahead and complain. In fact, if you think it's too much, take it to court.
It's the attitude we said of government.
Yes, same.
You want to complain? See, we complained here about Kenha.
Yes.
Very many times, and people to date are still complaining. What happened? They release a statement. They tell you, we'll open that road in 10 days. We'll open the other one in 5 days.
Did they open that road?
They'll open it.
And how many days did they... Now, Eric.
It's today. Wasn't it today?
Today is day 10.
Eric, when
wasn't
I told
it
you...
to be open today? It's tomorrow, 30th.
Today is day 10.
So they're opening today or tomorrow?
So not today, 10 days and finish, so tomorrow you open.
We can wait for the weekend. But Eric, now, when I told you that this road, these dates you're being given for completion will not happen. Now, do you understand?
No.
My friend, even if they're using material that is precast and all they're doing is coming and plonking it on site, this road, 2023.
The structure will be ready in December.
2023 is when this road will be completed.
You will see Gorofa from JKIA, where there's Gorofa, all the way to ABC Place. December.
Oh, I'm not saying I won't see it. 2023.
People have complained about that. I shared with you guys. There was a story in the Business Daily about this other bypass, the Western bypass.
Yes.
And the residents of that area complaining. In fact, let's read that story. Now that we're talking about the government attitudes, we are still on the teacher story, by the way. We haven't left it. It's still an addendum.
We're just adding to the story.
It's an addendum. So,
speaking of
Nairobi's Western bypass, a bitter pill for residents. Now, this is a bypass that comes from, let's start with the southern bypass. So you go join it at Ole Sereni here. You go all the way to Kikuyu. And then you get underpass with the Nakuru road at Gitaru. So from Gitaru, there's another extension that goes all the way to Ruaka.
These are such wonderful things.
Beautiful dual carriageway.
Yes.
It has been under construction. This is the one that was about 27 kilometers that was costing us 30 billion shillings.
27 kilometers.
$1 billion a kilometer or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That is a special billion kilometer.
Yeah,
Carry on.
It's just a small thing. It's been going on for a while. Now, the residents of that place are wondering, so what's happening here? The guys at Kirangari, Gikuni, Kibiku, Gadega, I'm reading a story on the Business Daily. In this area, basic provisions for exits and entry into the Western bypass have completely been ignored, requiring residents to drive an extra 4 kilometers up to Karura to access their homes. You're complaining about getting into Syokimau. There are people who are driving an extra 4 kilometers.
The opposite direction to come back.
So they can get to home. In addition, at the Gakuni Junction, a bridge that is supposed to link the agriculture-rich region with a bypass ends abruptly at a place called Kwamaiko with no clear connection to the bypass.
Okay.
There's a bridge. When a bridge ends abruptly, what happens?
You fall.
It's a dip. Travis.
Combined, Kirangari and Gadhiga locations have a population of about 65,000 people.
Those are many people.
Living on both sides of the road. The population is served by 17 public and private educational institutions, including primary and secondary schools and a polytechnic, as well as 3 children's homes. The area is served by 21 churches, a police station, 3 AP posts. The area has 5 manufacturing concerns. Also several public health institutions, including the Nyaduna Level 4 hospital. All these businesses now hung by a thread if the current design is maintained. Because bridge end, connection to the Western Bypass, onge.
Eric, just Wayaki Way, Njugunas, Total Petrol Station on your left as you're coming into town. From that point onwards, mounds and mounds of earth. So if you live along that, Muguga Green, apartments, Brookside, all that, you are going to go right up to Sarit. Okay?
Yes.
Then turn around.
To come home.
To enter home.
Now, are you telling me that when they're making this plan, they didn't know people live there?
Let me tell you, last night, you see this area, what's that building?
Which one?
Just as you come towards the mall, coming down from Njogonas.
Yes.
Right? Coming towards the mall.
Yes.
There's the Shell petrol station.
There's a Shell petrol station.
And then go up, there's that junction that gets into the road that goes into Sarit.
Yes.
Right? And that road, what's the name of that road? Piogamapinto Road, I think.
It's called Piogamapinto Road.
Yes.
That is correct.
So as you branch off into Piogamapinto Road, these guys decided yesterday that they needed to do something. They dug up the road.
Thank you.
Wayaki Way.
Yes, no.
In the middle of it. Signage.
Okay.
Signage what? So you can see there's a big...
That's the sign.
The
sign is
you can
the
see
hole.
the machine.
You can see the machine. That's the sign.
And if you doubt it's a hole, just drive
in
into
fact,
it.
Deep
a
hole.
What's wrong with
I'm
you?
sure this morning there is no way they could have covered that hole that night.
Do you think that was the intent?
That hole it was actually deep. It's like this entire, from ceiling to the floor, or floor to ceiling.
So it is an actual manhole.
They just decided, let's sink a hole.
They'll understand. I mean,
so, and this is a place where, as you're coming from town, you want to go into Westlands, that's where you turn.
Yes.
Some
And
rough patch,
jungle
rough
of
section,
something.
and Matatus coming down towards Westlands, plus everybody coming up from Westlands, from Matatus that were initially using the Westland stage that now don't have a Westland stage. That whole confusion now add a crater.
The stage there are 2 stages in Westlands now they've created. You look at this whole mess when you drive on that road, you ask yourself, are you telling me they didn't know? Of course they knew.
they don't care.
Thank you. And then they wonder why we cast aspersions. And when they say, this is what we're going to do, we say, really? So, 2023.
We're back there, are we?
2023.
This road.
Earliest.
2023 with cost overruns. Just wait.
Well, they've already told us it's going to be.
They've already told us it's going to cost more.
No. That's history. That's history. There'll be more cost overruns. Wait and see.
So this road is not going to cost us 70 billion shillings.
What 70? This one are going to hit around 90. Wow. Just give it time.
That means that how much you're going to pay to use the road is going to be increased as well.
Fuel levy will go up. In addition to paying for using that road.
Right.
And then bread will go up.
All right.
But they've told you. CBK today.
Then electricity will go up.
CBK yesterday, the Monetary Policy Committee met yesterday and they're like,
things are going to get thicker,
actually,
folks.
no.
Based on the aforegoing.
That is misreporting.
Due to the aforementioned.
Hard times are not ahead. Hard times are here.
Onga, it will be harder. That's what they're telling you. CBK says, as you're already facing the tough times today, be prepared because it's going to do what? It is going to get tougher. So these things that you're saying is going to get more expensive. To all of those things are included in this shopping list.
Don't tighten your belt. Eat the belt.
Yes, eat the belt. See, it's made of leather. And you know leather has come from cows.
You have tightened it until there's nothing left.
Food. Eat the belt.
Yes.
What?
Oh, you hadn't heard what we were saying, had you?
Kenya's biggest conversation continues into the next hour. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll also be opening up the conversation at 9 o'clock. In the next hour, we have two guests who will be joining us talking about governance. Okay? Keep it right here. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is News of Dennis Aseto. Former IEBC Chief Executive Officer Ezra Chiloba has been appointed Director General of the Communications Authority of Kenya for a renewable term of 4 years. In a statement, the authority's board chairman, Kembe Gitura, said Chiloba's appointment takes effect immediately. Chiloba left the Electoral Commission in 2018 after the 2017 election. Prior to Chiloba's exit, IEBC Chairman Ofula Chebukati had suspended him over procurement issues at the Commission. ODM Chief Raila Odinga has assured Kenyans that should he become Kenya's next president, he'll work to restore Kenya's manufacturing sector. He was speaking during a meeting with Mount Kenya Group Forum, who pledged to support his ambition. He said he'll work to restore Kenya's manufacturing sector, and in their part, the businessmen have said that time has come for President Uhuru Kenyatta to hand over the nation to a moral leader. Let's listen to what Raila said.
By the time the first regime was ending, there was an emergent African middle class in manufacturing, in banking, in insurance, and so on. These were basically killed later on through wrong policies and also the pressures from IMF and World Bank, liberalization, that killed very many businesses.
The Ministry of Health has announced that 255 people tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 6,305 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is now 4%, with total confirmed infections rising to 248,770. From the cases, 249 of them are Kenyans, while 6 are foreigners, 138 are males, and 117 are females. Meanwhile, the government aims to vaccinate 50,000 inmates across various correctional facilities in the country in a 5-day vaccination drive. The exercise, launched by the Ministry of Interior and coordination in partnership with the Ministry of Health, is meant to lead to reopening of the facilities and allowing inmates to enjoy visitation from their families following restrictions imposed in April last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Tunataka kufungua jela ili watu wakutane na familia zao. So the only way, nataka kuambia tu kweli, the only way we can do this fastest is we ensure kila mtu amekuwa vaccinated. Mimi by Friday this week, we should finish vaccinating the staff of prisons wote. Na tumepewa 100,000 doses na ministry. Kwa hivyo tuko na vaccine ya kutosha kwa kila mtu ambaye ako hapa.
Brace yourself for tough economic times ahead. The Central Bank of Kenya has warned that high food and fuel prices will continue to increase pressure on Kenyans' livelihoods. In a statement, CBK's Monetary Committee warned that the overall increase in prices of goods and services have largely increased due to the increased fuel prices that has seen petrol retail for 134 shillings per litre. While the hike has been blamed on increase on crude oil, it's the taxes levied on the product that has made a bad situation worse. In August, food inflation increased to 10.7% from 9.7% as compared to 6.5% in July. 2 U.S. generals have said they recommended keeping a force of 2,500 troops in Afghanistan ahead of the full U.S. withdrawal in August. Testimony by General Mark Miley and General Frank McKenzie to Congress seemed to contradict President Joe Biden, who said he did not recall any such advice. The Taliban took power in August after rapidly advancing through the country. General Miley said the U.S. had been taken by surprise by the spread of the Afghan government's collapse, adding that the army will protect the U.S. citizens.
A reconstituted Al-Qaeda or ISIS with aspirations to attack the United States is a very real possibility. And those conditions, to include activity in ungoverned spaces, could present themselves in the next 12 to 36 months. That mission will be much harder now, but not impossible. And we will continue to protect the American people.
Gor Mahia has confirmed parting ways with goalkeeper Samuel Njau, who joined Sports Rangers after only 1 year at Kogalo. According to the club's sporting director Lodvik Aduda, Malian international Adama Keita, Matthews Gad, Boniface Oluoch and Caleb Omondi will cover the department this season, although head coach Mark Harrison wanted to keep only 3. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Still continues on Mombasa Road this morning. We're seeing a lot of traffic on Old Mombasa Road out towards the ICD route today. Folks seem to be turning back for some reason, quite heavy in both directions. We're looking at that Imara Zaima diversion, and it's causing bit of hell for those who are on that side of the road. Going towards the southern bypass, however, it's not looking too bad. There are pockets of traffic on that go-to road this morning. Hopefully we'll get out of that without too much of a scratch. Likoni Road then joining with the interchange coming out of industrial areas also packed. We're looking at Lunga Lunga also with that problem. Enterprise Road, however, will link you to Mombasa Road without too much of an issue. All right, where it was easy on Huru Highway, it is now very difficult. There's a lot of traffic coming off of Aerodrome, joining then with Bunyala at the roundabouts going towards Haile Selassie. So it's the center of the city where there's drama this morning. We'll keep looking at it. Also on the Thika Superhighway, that continues to get heavier and heavier. Kariobangi North, that road on Outer Ring road stretch, also giving off some headache situations this morning. Let's keep an eye on things, guys. It gets easier, let us know. Harder, let us know as well. And we'll look for an alternative. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only
All right,
way to
Kenya's
start
biggest
your
conversation. It continues into the third hour. Welcome wherever you're tuned in this morning. Whether you are in the country and listening through SpiceFM 94.4 Nairobi or 87.9 Mombasa, or you're in Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, or you're watching us from wherever you are in the world on our live stream, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or you are joining us on KTN Home, a very good morning to you. Let's begin with today's African proverb. Let's see, Muga.
Let us begin with today's proverb. Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself from flies.
Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself from flies. Everybody has an irritant.
Everyone has an irritant. And there was a time in this country where the line of work that our two guests are in, the general line of work our two guests are in, were considered to be extreme irritants. People always pointing out to things you don't particularly want to be pointed out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have they left that box? Members of the evil society.
Members of the evil society have become just part and parcel of everyday life. Yes. And that is the danger. Because when they become part and parcel of everyday life, then their voice just joins the din. The impact is at best minuscule. Yes.
It's not as loud as it ought to be.
They end up losing their groove.
Right. Yes. So our guests in the studio this morning, one is from ICJ Kenya. She's a program officer for economic justice. Jane Muhia, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation. And then we have Derek Mahandia. He's a regional officer for Transparency International Kenya. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are discussing enhancing transparency and accountability in governance through access to information. Access to information is such a big thing that we even included it in our constitution and said, you know what, we have it. We even have laws that say every citizen should have access to public information. And even in ways in which we started to break away that mold of sirikali by government and saying, yeah, there's some siri that, we allow you to keep for a while, but not all siri is kali. Let us have information and access to this information. This is what you deal with on a daily basis, isn't it, Jane?
Yes, it is.
And when you say access to information, what kind of information do you necessarily talk about? Well, from the economic justice front.
Personally, for me, it's mostly about public sector accountability. And really the issues that most of us are concerned about are issues of public finances. We all pay taxes. We want to know how our money is being applied, how government is prioritizing issues. So at the very foundation of access to information is information held by public agencies that concerns you as a citizen and affects the way you exercise other rights.
Whose public agency? Whose public agency? We were having a conversation in the previous hour about contracts signed and entered into by a privately owned entity and listed, Kenya Power, and independent, privately owned power producers. Now, those contracts, would you consider that public information?
Actually, within the Access to Information laws, the Access to Information Act, if a private entity is in any way applying public resources, then that contract would be subject to disclosure. So if KPLC is in any way exercising public resources and that information affects the general public, then that information should be subject to what we call proactive disclosure even. They shouldn't wait to be prompted. They should just be disclosing that information.
They should willfully disclose information.
Yeah.
Hear that, City?
That's what they don't.
Water off a duck's back.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
What if they don't? As we have often seen as the practice, there have been calls over and over again from, private sector, civil society, say, look, let us know what is going on here, because that then could explain some of the high costs that we see in mismanagement issues later. So they don't. Then what?
We have options. The formal process for requesting for that access would be writing to the CEO, who is considered as the Access to Information Officer under the Act. Then you give them 21 days to respond. If they do not respond within that 21 days, within the 21 days, they should be able to tell you what is the decision on your request. They can either tell you, look, we need more time to consult on this information, and they're only allowed to do that once for another 14 days. But if they're not forthcoming at all, then you go to the Commission on Administrative Justice, which is the commission that is obligated to oversight the Access to Information Act. And then from there, the commission will look at your complaint, and then they will investigate. They have investigatory powers, and then they can issue orders. And those orders are also binding on this public entity. If that does not work out, court is always an option also to sort of force the public entities to do what they're supposed to do in law. Yeah.
Derek.
Yes.
As Transparency International Kenya, have you tried to access some bit of information and you actually were able to do it without having to go through the whole process of getting them forced to do it through the court or even going to 1, 2, 3 offices? Have you, as an institution, applied for certain information, access to certain information, and actually got it?
We have done, and there are some bits of information we've been able to obtain. But before I get into that, let me get back to Chris. He called us Evil Society, and he gave us a not so warm welcome. I think there's the way things are happening. There's a change in how a lot of institutions are engaging the government these days, especially when we got the new constitution. Before we did not have enough platforms to engage governments in a different way. We do not have the legal instruments, the institutional frameworks. So the way we engage the government these days in terms of calling out the government, seeking information, can be a bit different. We explore options like the court, institutions which are supposed to guarantee some of these information and corrective measures, disciplinary measures. We engage them. So we active, Daktari. Yeah, but in terms of the progress that we've made in accessing government information, there has been a lot of progress, especially at county level. There are a lot of counties which are proactively disclosing information, and whenever we seek those informations, those bits of information, we are able to receive them. But we are not there yet. I think we still have a lot of resistance and resilience from governments in terms of disclosing information, whether proactively or by request. So there is still a lot of challenges in that. I think we still have the old block, the old way of thinking among especially senior government officers. And it seems the idea that they can disclose significant information, especially information such a strange thing for them to accept. And so when sometimes we really have to push.
Let me pause you there, Derek. Okay, yes. Give us examples. We wanted this information, we requested for it, we got it. We wanted this information, we requested for it, we're still hearing crickets. Just two cases.
You're really putting me on the wall, eh?
Yeah,
But
because I just don't want us to have a conversation about, yes, we know there's been progress, there's been this and the other, and then we're talking about enhancing transparency through access to information. If it's working, so why are we talking about it?
Actually, what we're actually asking for is a little transparency on this.
Okay.
Yes.
There was a time we requested for information on COVID-19 budgetary and donations that the government had received in terms of, you remember when COVID was beginning?
Yes.
And we requested information and we were able to get that information. We've made so many access to information requests for information to county governments. We've been able to receive them. But a few examples on the information we've not been able to receive, the SGR contract. We did request so many times, but we have not been able to receive that information to date.
Why do you think that is? And maybe we can also hear from you, Jane. Why is it? Because oftentimes they say that if you can understand the intricacies of an issue, then it will allow you to be able to then get your solution. So now, if this problem keeps coming up, that the access to information is difficult, there is a reluctance to share this information, why? Why do you think that is?
I was actually reflecting on this just yesterday was the International Day on Access to Information, and basically for me, we have the relevant laws, we have the bodies, but I think the more difficult thing to change is the culture. The culture is really what we are struggling with, where people feel, and I was trying to correlate it with the context of even in our homes. We were not brought up to ask for information from our parents. If you go to school, you don't ask your teacher. Decisions are made for you, and then you're supposed to just accept them. Think about even seeing a doctor. We don't even ask about the diagnosis. They give you prescriptions, and you take them and you go to the pharmacy. Because when you ask, they hesitate, and you're like, so I'm not supposed to ask for this information. So if you think about it that way, it reflects in how our public officials operate. So that they feel this information, it's from a very negative point of view. They feel that, why are you asking for that information? Are you looking to expose me? And those are questions we have been confronted with when we ask. They say, uliza mkubwa. Have you been authorized to access this information by mkubwa? So it's just, I think that's the struggle. That's because that you can't address by law. We have the constitution, we have broad frameworks, but then how do you change that perception that this information is private and confidential, or it has to be authorized by so and so? I might just be asking because I want to know if you're carrying out a school project in my area. I just want to know. I'm a parent in that school.
Right.
So I just want to know what your priorities are, who's being given that contract. I might just want to know. And legally, I'm not even supposed to give you reasons why I want to know that information.
But does it not also point out to something fairly nefarious in our system, where someone who is in some quasi-authority has a connection with somebody who has real authority, and so everything that they do automatically relates in their minds. So it's like, I cannot give this information because it might place this person in a bad light. So the greater picture of public good, public servant, I'm your employer, when I ask you something, you should actually be telling me. It's like, no, we're not going to tell you. It's a quiet conspiracy. I don't think people don't sit down and plan and say, this is what we're going to do. But it is how public service works, so that somebody understands that in so doing, they've protected the mkubwa. Okay? And maybe the mkubwa doesn't need protection. But that's how they feel. And also, because of the deep set corruption that we have in this country, everyone at their level has a deal going on. So when you ask that question, the deal that they're involved in comes to mind.
Of course.
So you pass the buck, another Kenyan trait, mkubwa. Okay? So this merry-go-round just continues. So it isn't that the information isn't there, but they know that perhaps with that information, a lot more than they would want to be in the public domain will become public. Yes. Because in all honesty, ask yourself a simple question. If there was absolutely nothing to hide, why do you want to keep it secret?
Sure.
All these civil servants we speak of, these people are well educated, they understand the law. And given where they work, they know exactly what is required of them and what they're supposed to do. They do know.
So could that be it then? If TI Kenya went in, or ICJ went in with the nose that perhaps we're not being given this information, perhaps this information is not being shared with us because there is something to hide. If you go in knowing that, wouldn't it then be easier to reveal some of these things then that are being looked for?
Yeah, and I think Kenya, since its inception, we have always had an information blackout. So whenever we try to shine the light on anything, it is perceived as if we are looking for trouble. So anytime we knock onto doors and try to seek information, even when there is nothing to hide, whoever is supposed to give that information perceives that we are certainly looking for something. But the cure for Dr. Chris's question is the regulations. Identify who is an information officer. Every department should have an information officer. Of course, procedurally and protocol. Even myself, there is some information I cannot reveal about my organization.
Yeah.
But there is someone who is supposed to reveal that information. So even in government, you might seek information from someone who is not authorized to reveal it, but there are definitely someone who they should direct you and who should give you that information. It is just procedural, it is expected, but nowhere is it expected that there's information which should not be given. But of course, because corruption is always a web, there is someone eating at every level. So that is why there is sometimes some reluctance in that information getting out. The mkubwa might be involved in something else. The mdogo also has their own share in that whole web which the mkubwa does not know. But it is a web. And the only reason why you should not be given information is because of the likelihood that there's some danger lurking.
State security.
But again, if you look at the legislative journey we have traveled, with the Access to Information Act, before no one was supposed to reveal any government information. And some of those who gave this information out, the Munyakeis, they were fired, and because because of that.
Yeah.
So at least now we have some safety nets where anyone is at liberty to. You cannot be victimized for giving out information as long as it is a public information.
I just want you to pause there. You're talking about the law. Is that law really practiced? Because what you're saying is that whistleblowers will be protected. I'm contextualizing it. Are whistleblowers protected in this country? From what I've observed, they are victimized to their teeth, and their lives become a living hell.
And those victimizing them are still using the law as grounds.
Yes.
Well, as I said earlier, we are not there yet. But I can assure you that we are better, way better than what we had before. Today, whistleblowers have at least some safety net, some protection from government and even civil society. And it might not be out there, but it is way harder to victimize them now. And also in terms of seeking information, we have way more tools right now as compared to the former regimes. We have the Constitution. You can simply knock to any office with that specific article of the Constitution. We have institutions such as the Ombudsman, the Commission of Administrative Justice, who are supposed to ensure that any information that is sought should be given. We have the courts, which are more proactive and justice-oriented today. So we have way more tools today than we had before. There is some progress.
Granted. So there are many tools to use. There's a lot of progress that has been made on this particular front. Now we want to highlight those gains that we've made and the gaps that are still missing. That's a conversation that we're having today on enhancing transparency and accountability in the governance process through access to information. Our guests in the studio today, Derek Mahandia, he's a regional officer at Transparency International Kenya, and Jen Muhia, program officer for economic justice at ICJ Kenya. Your friend Sarah Nyakeo says, I love it when my friends win. Jane, I see you. Yeah, so shout out to you, and from Jane, from Sarah to Jane, Jane to Sarah. You can wave. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, 26 minutes after 8. Let's take a break on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, online. We'll be back shortly.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice up your life.
At 17, we'll see lows of 15 today and highs of 28. Nakuru, sunny at 16, highs of 27 and lows of 14. We'll see 15 as the low in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 16, going to highs of 26. In Eldoret this morning, sunny conditions also at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 12. Kisumu, sunny conditions at 21, highs of 29 and lows of 20, while in Kakamega, it's partly sunny at 23. It'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 15. In Mombasa, rain continues in some parts, cloudy conditions, however, highs of 30 and lows of 24, currently at 27. It's also 27 in Malindi, raining as well, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Looking out into Kampala, 22 degrees, partly sunny conditions, highs of 29 and lows of 19. While in Joburg this morning, it's sunny as well at 18. It'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 13. Lagos continues to rain at 24. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 31. And partly sunny in Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 33 and lows of 24.
Chilled Spice.
It still continues on the beat this morning, guys. Quite a lot of traffic in the CBD. All roads. We're talking about Langata and Ngong, Mombasa Road, coming off Thika Superhighway, Jogo Road, everything feeding off from Wayaki Way into the city centre today. And those vessels are thumping with traffic this morning. Ngong Road, very, very packed today, more than usual. Don't know what's going on there. Maybe you can let us know. Also, industrial area, then feeding onto the Likoni interchange on Mombasa Road this morning. Enterprise Road, then going towards Mombasa Road will help. Aerodrome Road, then connecting with the Bunyalo roundabout on Uhuru Highway. Uhuru Highway is stretching out, spreading its arms all the way through to the city with traffic this morning. Interestingly enough, in and outbound, we're seeing traffic on the Thika Superhighway that was previously spilling over from Outer Ring, continuing. Kiambu Road also quite packed and joining with Muthui Square going towards the Pangani underpass. So still in the middle of traffic hour, and it doesn't look like it's getting any lighter anytime soon. But let's check back in about half an hour and see what it looks like. For now, patience pays, folks. Patience pays. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The conversation continues at 8:30. We are live on Spice FM on KTN Home and online. This is the Situation Room. In the room this hour is Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and Jen Mohia from ICJ Kenya, as well as Derek Mahandia from Transparency International Kenya, enhancing transparency and accountability in governance through access to information. You took us through, what we have currently, the legal regime, the process of accessing information and request it from whichever office. You can even go to the ombudsman, and then you can escalate it as far as even going to court to ask the court to compel the certain office to give you that information. And then also, Derek, you told us you've actually been able to access information when you requested for it from the national government, from the county government, but there's some information that is not easily forthcoming because obviously of several strings. For example, SGR contract, there's a lot of political heavy hand on it, on the implications of just giving you that information. So obviously a junior officer will not just give you that information if the top has not said share information. Now, how do you make that junior officer? You want it, I'll give you.
Because procedurally it might be a bit difficult, but the most important thing and what these junior officers need to understand is as long as there is a likelihood of corruption or abuse of mismanagement of funds, they are under obligation to release that information under the whistleblower scheme. So they do not need any approvals at all. They can come out in the open and just reveal that information to whichever agency seeks it. So now, because of also the culture from the top that this information, they are not releasing it. So obviously junior officers will find it difficult because of repercussions or otherwise. It's just a question, it's a matter of culture that we do not have a legal solution for.
Actually, Have you found that at times when you seek information, the delay or what seems to be obstruction is actually a bargaining process? That somebody is hoping that you will talk to them.
And by talking,
talking, we're not. Yeah, we don't mean having a conversation. We mean having a conversation. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a contributing factor where you find even when you physically go to an office and you have an oral conversation with somebody, they might disclose more than you trying to use like the formal process of it. So it plays out, and I think the legal solution, I think we need to go back to sort of the legal solutions are not working anymore. There's definitely the issue of strengthening our whistleblower sort of regulation so that we have proper mechanisms, so that I know even as a junior most officer in a public office, I have protection, and that system is actually working. But I think we also need to reevaluate. Like, let's look at public service as an organization and look at it from operate from a value system.
Right. We
have values within our constitution. To what extent do people recognize that within the system?
Even as you say that, it's interesting, Jane, as you talk about reevaluation. So then, maybe then it's important to shed light on what a situation then would assist or how it would help if we had transparency within the system, right? Because oftentimes we say, okay, well, things are not working, we don't really know what's going on, but then what? But if we look at the importance of having this transparency within the system, what then would it foster? Maybe we can look at some of those things, and maybe you can help out with that. That if we have a system of doing things that is open, that is transparent, how then would it assist, or how would it help?
The benefits of it.
What are the benefits?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is trust. Earlier in the conversation, I heard you say how the relationship between the government and the citizenry at the moment is suspicion. Every time we are looking at each other with suspicion, or I think information and just being open fosters that sort of trust between the people and the government. Then we have decision making. As a citizen, the very basics of democracy is a government by the people, for the people, and the people should be engaged. So the only way I can effectively engage with my government is if I have the necessary information. Then we also have the bigger issues of even fair business. Look at it from even a business perspective. People who want to get government business, if that process is not open, or you just know there are certain people who will get the tenders and you don't even have a fighting chance if you don't know people, then there's that also. Fair opportunity for everyone, and the bigger pictures also go into public service delivery, health, education. So if you look at corruption in the sense that we are wasting so much resource, so if we were a bit more open and transparent and tried to close those gaps, how much more can we do to enhance such essential services?
Especially on corruption. Corruption thrives in darkness. So the moment the fund holders and managers know that there will be no one asking them questions on how they've utilized the funds, then it's more easy for them to misappropriate those funds. So access to information is a very essential tool in fighting corruption and enhancing transparency in government.
I don't even think many of our people in authority are afraid of questions being asked, because those at the very top have got good PR. They will give you the impression that, in fact, that information is very easy to access.
What is that?
I mean, if you've had a problem, you just come and see me and we'll see. But that is not a problem. It's never a problem as they're talking to you. Then wait and see if you'll get that information. You'll be taken down in so many circles.
Yeah.
And every time you go back to them, the question is, you mean you haven't gotten information yet? Who have you been dealing with? And you give the name, says, no, leave it with me.
As Jen mentioned, I think in our field, it is easier to get information informally. So if you are talking to someone in an office, they will give you all that information more readily. But the moment you make a formal request, then that is where the trouble begins. I totally agree with you, City.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm asking myself, were we actually ready we passed a constitution, but were we ready to accept this constitution and to adopt the constitution as our constitution? All of us as citizens. I'm just going back from where Jane was coming from. From basic community level, today, you are somebody, your father comes to you and is asking you information about your mother. You've got to think twice before you see what kind of information you're going to give your father about your mother. And why? It's just because, I mean, why does he want this information? Am I going to be, setting up my mom? It's always looking at what is the likely negative result of the information that I'm going to give. And like you said, Jane, from school, it's only very young children who are very readily will tell you, Daddy amesema yuko. But everybody else will
Daddy amesema
nikwambie hayuko. Yes. But beyond that, once they start getting a bit of knowledge, they play ball. They know, okay, so this information, I don't just readily share this information with everybody. So we have it ingrained in us. So as we come up with this constitution that says there shall be a lot of, transparency in public information, there'll be public participation. There's no decision that will be made at any level of government without involving the citizens. And if you are the one who's a duty bearer, you've been given this responsibility to exercise authority. You're exercising it on behalf of the people. So you should, were we ready, really?
No,
if you put me in a position today and you came and asked me for that information, even after having sat on this chair for many years and, demanding access to information, I'll think twice.
I think, Eric, the very essence of our constitution is the fact that it is viewed as one of the most progressive. So there are many things in it that are aspirational. But that is it. That is the very important part. It is what that has allowed us to make certain progress. So if you look at culture and how culture is built, it's over many years. The Constitution has only been here for 10 years. So I think it is to acknowledge that we are making progress, that we are doing. And it is by virtue of the aspirations in our Constitution that we can make that progress.
Sure.
And then in due time, now we start seeing that culture change. Yeah.
And just to add on that, the Constitution might have gone beyond the thinking of the ordinary Kenyan. And what we have seen, just as much as the idea that a government officer is required to reveal such amounts of information is so hard to comprehend. The common citizen might also find it difficult to comprehend why they need to understand how much was spent on the SGR. So we haven't had so many Kenyans, a massive number of Kenyans knocking on doors, asking for certain for information and being agitated or angry when that information is not given. So that is likely to take a lot of time in just changing the culture of Kenyans and making them understand the importance of access to information, appreciating why it was there in the Constitution in the first place, and how they can make use of that information effectively.
I hear what you're saying, but I really do feel as though we approach this thing from a coddling perspective, and we say, this is the way in which we are, and we've made progress over the years, and our Constitution is only 10 years old, and it's been compounded traditional behavior, so we've improved. There are democracies on this globe today whereby it is not a suggestion that you will comport yourself in a particular way. That we are not asking you or begging you or understanding your traditions and cultures. We're saying that as an entity, nationally, government, state, country, this is the way in which we are going to behave. We will be transparent. We will be accountable. Nobody's, like we say in Nigeria, nobody's saying I beg. No. This is the way in which we are going to operate. So when we're now trying to coddle this behavior of saying, we have been this way for so long, and we're only trying now to get out of this shell, in my opinion, it is going to be that way for a very long time.
So it should be forced.
Forever.
So it's like you have gangrene in your leg. The doctor doesn't speak to the gangrene and say, okay, let's see if you're going to spread a little bit. But let's just wait and see. We know you've been there for some time. No, you cut it off. So when are we going to get to that point where you say we're angry enough and going to ask enough questions and demand that something ought to be done, or just kind of petting this thing along and hoping that one day some bite you?
That's what I was saying. It starts with us. Just like Derek is saying, are you comfortable when you're asking that information? Are you comfortable to seek information? How many people today would sit back and think, yeah, I think I need to know how much Nairobi City County is spending this year in terms of budget? How many? How many find that, it's important to find out how much is Nairobi collecting in revenue from just parking alone? How many? It's only a group of people who are in a certain space. And we call this space the active, the civil society, the all. Everybody else, yeah. So how do we change that culture of everybody? You're saying, let's push this. How do we push it?
I think that is something we confront every day working in this space, is that you understand, being in this space and interacting with the issue every day, you realize just how important that it is. But you also need the citizenry, because the government and what is happening is a reflection of who we are as a society. We are the ones enabling it. The reason why we cannot say, no, this is not going to go on, is that some of us are benefiting from that system and we are okay with it. So until we all acknowledge and are on one page that we have to play on a fair sort of playing ground, only then can things change. But for now, it's just that constant battle of...
Jane, no, Jane, it won't happen. It actually won't happen. Even give it 1,000 years, give it a million, it won't happen. And the reason why it won't happen, leadership, by its very essence, is supposed to bring about a situation that ensures that these things happen. They don't happen on their own. They never do. If the leadership is not only comfortable with it, but they perpetuate it, then we are stuck. And the things we keep hearing is how, that's our coping mechanism, how we cope with all this. It may offend you at a personal level and you may want, but everyone around you seems comfortable. What you don't realize, they may be as uncomfortable as you, but everyone is trying to find a way of coping with this. So, well, it's culture. Coping.
Oh, it's been there for so long.
Coping.
We've made progress.
Coping. What progress?
But I think I agree with Daktari when you talk about, I think one of the other many elements is political will. So, for instance, take the example of Makueni County, and why it is being recognized for the willingness to disclose. It's because it's coming from the top. Actually, some of the conversation to hear is that, what will happen if Kivutha leaves? If all these things, if all these things have not now been put in legislation. So I agree with you. Political will really says a lot, and it sets the pace for everyone else.
Now, unfortunately, political will is something that you hope that one individual will have it. So Kivutha Kibwana has demonstrated that he has, the willingness to share information and to involve the people of Makueni in governance. Have the people of Makueni internalized that? And is it what they'll be looking for in the next governor? Hopefully. Or will they be looking for something different? How long will it take before all of us, as the residents of Makueni, see these are the benefits, or everybody in the country can see these are the benefits of actually having a leader who sees the point of involving citizens in every step of decision making. Now we shall therefore be looking for, among other things, tick this box. Do you demonstrate political willingness? It's not coping, City. It's still, yes, we need a leader, but also we need leaders such as ICJ and Transparency International to then come down and focus on inculcating that culture in us.
What would form that symbiotic relationship? Because I see that's what needs to happen, that you have a leader, clearly, who knows where he or she is going, right? And now has these tenets of accountability and transparency lined up properly. But then also needs other people within the mix to make this thing work. So what are some of the things that obviously do you as a leader, do you say from the very beginning that I'm going to bring other people on board to check us, to make sure that we are going in the right direction? Do I say that as I'm starting to do these things, I will bring you in and walk with us along the way, not just overlooking in terms of oversight, but, I'm sharing information with you. So it becomes a natural way of doing things as opposed to be pushed and prodded in order to then share. How would it work? Because clearly it seems as though that's the way it must happen. That there must be a relationship, give and take, and that both sides benefit in these things of accountability and transparency? How do you start off, if that's what we must do, after we've cut off the leg, of course?
Yeah, I think definitely leadership is usually the catalyst for revolution and change and ethos in every institution. The people of Makueni have benefited from that, and now even the next time they get a leader, there will be the next leader they get, they will demand more. Or
the bar is high.
The bar is high, so they will not demand, they will not accept anything less. How to resolve that is, of course, Kivuta was elected among many contestants, but he was chosen, and the people of Makueni are able to see the benefits of electing the right leaders. The only thing that needs to be done is other voters in other counties and other constituencies, and of course nationally, just need to replicate that. It's not rocket science. We just need to vote for people who espouse the values that we seek.
It's rocket science, but
It's rocket science.
Well,
it's
another kind of science.
The people of this country keep talking about, we had Mwai Kibaki, we had Mwai Kibaki. There's the same people who have voted 2 elections after Mwai Kibaki, and they're going to a third. Rocket science, my friend. Are you hearing people talking about? So these are the qualities that we saw in Mwai Kibaki, and this is what we'll be looking for in the next leader. Have you had any conversation like that? And yet, we are constantly talking about, the glory years of Kibaki. Rocket city.
You know, one of the things that perhaps is difficult to grasp is this question of what do you do? Because consensus as to the need for change, that one there is no debate. Consensus as to the fact that certain changes need to take place. People agree, but then what to do? Beyond the Kenyan game, you know, this one should actually be a game on TV. Who do we blame next? Okay? Because it's what we do. So and so ought to do this. Suggestions, perhaps, but you, the I and what I ought to do. In that space that you have, which is you, how do you actually stand for what is actually right and say, no, that I'm not going to do. It doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing. That I am not going to do. Simple case. How many times have you been to a public gathering and people wear their masks on their chin and tell someone, Chief or Madam, please, just, you're not protecting your chin. You're supposed to protect your nose. How often have you even pointed that out and said, this is what you ought to do? This, I'm calling it the coping mechanism, Eric. Yeah? You don't want to stand out as being the odd person. And since you don't see any direct harm in it, you figure, let me just comply. Now, unfortunately, it's the same attitude that you'll carry with throughout everything else that you do. So even when something which is patently wrong is taking place, you still find ways and means of trying to reason with it and explain it. Now, the moment you're explaining wrong, something has really gone off. Because wrong is just wrong. There's no if and but. It's wrong.
Yes, I think we spend so much time diagonizing and not issuing prescriptions and treating the problem.
A coping mechanism. Yes.
But we have to be to call out the citizen. There's no way we can fix this without a critical mass of citizens.
You know, we've had members of parliament in this studio. If you didn't know the person was a member of parliament, you'd think this is a very concerned citizen. Okay?
And they understand the pain.
These people, the decisions they make, you actually pause and say, but this guy's a member of parliament. Which people is he talking about? It's them who make these decisions. The things they do. And I'm wondering, what's this person talking about? Why is he talking like us?
In fact, the president should dissolve this parliament.
Yes.
Where I am.
Yes. So
should he also dissolve himself?
Yeah, all of us to go home.
The things these parliamentarians do, and you're thinking, what's this person talking about? So, yes, that culture explains where we are even now with understanding of leadership. You want a leadership that doesn't shed too much light on what you particularly do not want to see. That's why we like these opaque leaders. You know very well this guy is opaque. The guy has a background that a thug would envy, okay? But you still vote that person in.
We don't want to confront our issues.
No,
truths.
we don't. We don't want to confront our issues. So we choose people whom we know or we think
can
are
blame.
yeah, or slightly worse than us. So that's why I called it a coping mechanism. We choose these leaders deliberately so that we don't know what we're doing. We do know. At the back of our minds, there's a guilt factor that Kenyans carry with them because they know they do wrong. It's not that they don't know. Why do you think the attendance in our churches is so high? People need absolution.
Sanitize after 6 days of rubbish.
They know that they're doing wrong. They are clearly aware.
Interesting conversations. They continue. This is what we have every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the Situation Room. It's coming up to 5 minutes to 9. Interesting conversations we've had with Jane Mohia, Program Officer, Economic Justice at ICJ Kenya, and Derek Mahandia, Regional Officer, Transparency International Kenya. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Come back
very
again
much.
soon.
Asante.
And thank you very much to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since the top of the hour. Now it's coming to the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. You can follow the conversation via our live stream, www.spicefm.co.ke or SpiceFM KE. We are live streaming the show on audio visual on SpiceFM KE, Twitter, Facebook, on YouTube. And we are also on SpiceFM around the country in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi. Good morning.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 2 minutes to the top
Mornings
of the hour.
done right.
We talk about accountability, Ndu, and what we need to do as citizens to make sure that there's the entire transparency and accountability in our system, in government, accessing information if and when you need it, as soon as you seek it, you get it. How long do you give us?
Well, I don't know if you can put a timeline on that, but I think there are certain things that need to happen and chalk it up to, sure, something that has been compounded over long is going to take time. But if you don't see that hammer is being applied, you're still approaching a boulder with a toothpick. It's not going to happen. You say, we know there's corruption. Oh, we've tried. No. There's certain things that you do at the time to deal with that cancer that is there. Not hoping that the problem will understand and then react. No. If you say that there has been change or it's been long, and then you're still approaching it in a very soft, coddling manner, it's going to be there for a very long. What did you say? 1,000 years?
I said, even if. Do you know why it is, if you are looking at the moral concept of sin, why it is so attractive? It's not always negative. No.
They're nice things.
The benefits.
No, many, many lovely, delightful consequences. consequences. The process, nice. But you see, consequences always in the future. So you figure, when we get there,
show us immediate benefits. I think if you just show, like you keep saying, City, if people see the benefit, if you can feel benefits, then people will gravitate towards what's beneficial.
They will. People always gravitate towards beneficial to them. But you see, corruption has an immediacy to it that is really attractive, because you can see it here and now. It's not aspirational in the future.
It's
okay.
this.
If I support so and so, he can give me this contract. It's here. It's something you can see. Okay. And I also know he has this kitty and he can give me my share. So it's here.
Interesting conversations. Keep it right here for more. Good morning. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has been accused of misleading the public into thinking that Parliament is delaying in passing laws, hence slowing the Commission's activities. Speaking in Parliament, Minority Leader John Mbadi emphasized that the only bill in Parliament was legislation on the use of election funds, and that was being addressed. Mbadi called on the IEBC to appear before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to explain in detail what it needs from Parliament to ensure Kenyans get free and fair elections.
I'm standing here to seek for your intervention to have the Oversight Committee of this House, which is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, to intervene and invite the leadership of IBC, and so that we are clear that IBC has no excuse at all. We don't want excuses, Mr. Speaker. And I can see already, chances are that if we just keep quiet, chances are that IBC is going to have excuses again for conducting sham election next year.
According to the committee's deputy chairman, Opondo Kaluma, the meeting is likely to take place on Tuesday next week. Now, pressure continues to be piled on Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i, Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, and IPOA to arrest a police officer who injured Barnabas Langat for asking the police not to use excess force when arresting Kenyans that do not wear masks. John Juguna from Cherangany constituency was shocked to learn that the Kapcherop station officer was still free despite his excessive use of force.
Mambo ambao mimi nauliza waziri wa usalama bwana Matiang'i na mkuu wa polisi bwana Mutyambai, nataka huyo askari ashikwe na astakiwe, kwa sababu haiwezekani kupiga raia ambao hana hatia risasi. Huyo askari achukuliwe hatua kali, na saa hii nasikia yako huru kwa station ya Kapcherop, ya polisi ya Kapcherop, anatembea hapo akifanya kazi na akisema alifanya kazi yake vizuri, na saa hii mtu ako rivaro na tena ako na majeraha ya risasi.
Juguna said the relationship between the police and the residents has begun to worsen again.
Hii maski Kenya imeleta shida kwa sababu polisi wamepata nafasi ya kusumbua Wakenya na kuhangaisha Wakenya, kuchukua pesa, kupiga Wakenya juu ya maski. Mbona wanatumia bunduki vibaya? Hiyo bunduki haiwezi maliza corona. Corona ni watu wenyewe watakubali iishe. Askari ni mtu wa kulinda mwananchi na kulinda mali ya wananchi. Sasa hata uhusiano baina ya raia na polisi imeanza kuwa mbaya.
The judiciary has so far heard over 144,000 cases and made over 31,000 judgments and rulings through the virtual courts deployed in the 170 courts across the country. The Standard has established that as of June 2021, some 67,299 cases were filed through the e-filing system, which is available in all courts in Nairobi County. This means with a simple smartphone and internet connection, some court users receive a link to join a court session. Once their session is over, they continue with their other business, having had saved in time and cost. In March 2020, the judiciary fully automated its operation in a shift that was aimed at improving efficiency as well as stopping revenue leakage. KEMSA has now stated that it will deliver drags to the counties within 1 week of ordering. Speaking during the distribution of 64 million shillings worth of equipment to Kitui County, Acting Chief Executive Officer Edward Njoroge outlined a number of strategies in place to address the challenge of delivering the equipment for medical treatment. Among such strategies is investing in modern technology for importing and distribution. Likewise, there is a special panel dealing with the counties who are KEMSA's major client. Health experts in the counties have warned girls against using emergency pills regularly. Reproductive health officer at Level 4 Hospital in Kitale, Gladys Gathoni, has warned that the drugs are harmful if used improperly and that they can cause complications in pregnancy.
Mambo ya
kutumia P2 ama hiyo postina tu yenye wamama wasichana wanatumia, kama lazima itumike maybe twice in a year, kwa sababu it has very high levels of estrogen. So don't use it anyhow. Anytime you have a problem, enda kwa any health facility. As we have said, you'll get information and you'll get the correct service that you require.
She says that she has advised Kenyans rather not to be afraid to seek healthcare when they become infected with a sexually transmitted disease.
You know, we try to take all people who are sexually active when we do our statistics. At the moment it's 68. In our county it's 35%. Do not die alone with an STI. And remember that multiple sexual partners at a young age will be service of cancer later on in life. So avoid them. Health services are not your enemy, they're your friends, because we want help for all of you.
The Registrar of Political Parties, Andy Reid, has finally announced the complete dissolution of the NASA alliance. In a statement, the Reid said all parties had agreed to break up the coalition after ODM's Raila Odinga, Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi from ANC, Moses Wetangula from Ford Kenya, and Isaac Ruto of CCM signed a joint agreement to disband NASA. The leaders also agreed to share the money allocated to the alliance. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're still in traffic hour. We see quite a lot of it on the Uhuru Highway heading into the city. Aerodrome Road absolutely jam-packed, joining with traffic that's coming off Langata Road as an option to get into the city much quicker than going round towards the Nyeri Stadium. So that's what we're looking at. We're also seeing extended traffic in industrial area. Also coming off from Gong Road still continues to be a thing. We're also looking at traffic on the Thika Superhighway still continuing this morning. Coming in from Muthui, around that Muthui Square, and then also Kiambu Road. Absolute mess. Looking a lot better on Mombasa Road, however. It's a good thing, and we can count those blessings this morning. Are you stuck somewhere? Let us know. Incidents, accidents. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
And thank you for keeping it locked on Spice FM around the country and around the world. Before we hear today's proverb, there's somebody who's tweeted, when you go up country for a function, city, there's a wedding somewhere, it's a function somewhere, a wedding, funeral. How do you know the directions? What do the hosts do to give you directions?
Either there's somebody I'm constantly talking with on the phone, or they tell me about a marketplace I'm likely to know.
Right.
So when you get here,
right,
okay, look for this building,
right,
or look for this shop, or there'll be a landmark.
Okay.
Okay. Then when you get there are two roads. The one which doesn't seem very clear, avoid. The one which seems like it was recently paved, follow that one. And then there'll be some bananas we have planted on both sides of the road to show you that is a path you must follow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So bananas used to be very common. They're still common. And then people discovered something else on the road. Chalk or ash.
Yes.
With an arrow.
Yes. Somebody sprinkles it very liberally.
Yes.
And it points, yes.
Points a certain direction. Now it's become, somebody has gone onto Twitter and said, this is now the most common road sign. Should it be gazetted?
That's a good thought.
Chalk on the road now. So this is Friday. There's an event here. They have done chalk. Tomorrow is Saturday. There's an event somewhere else. They've done chalk on the heading the different direction.
Eric,
You get there.
I'm actually glad
You don't know whose chalk is today's
I don't know
chalk.
which one you're supposed to follow. The chalk from yesterday is still there.
I'm actually very glad you brought this thing up, because if there is a place where people are supposed to park their cars,
yes,
there's something I observed. Okay, there'll be that group of people who've come in the matatu. They'll tell you park over there.
Yeah.
If you come in your own vehicle, people actually rush towards you and greet you as though they know you and you've never met these people in your life. And then they tell you, no, we don't want you to walk very far. Just come and park
close.
somewhere here. Now, the problem with that park close here, I remember I once went to a funeral and we were being told to park, actually it was farmland, but it had been dry, so it looked firm. It rained.
What?
It rained.
Before you had driven out.
It rained.
Bas.
I leave it to you to consider how getting out of that place was. And cars were parked next to each other and behind each other. It rained. And the farmland went back to factory settings.
Where? It became a farm.
It became a farm.
You had to harvest yourself out of there. Today's proverb density.
Right. Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself against flies.
Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself against flies. It's a good African proverb. It's a very nice one. You'll tell us what it means at the end of the show.
I will try.
Okay. I want to point out something that's quite bizarre. In terms of, you talk about reporting. Listen to this story, page 13 of The Nation today. Employers to top up staff NHIF payments. Lawmakers had been warned the changes would drive up the cost of labor. This was among the first stories that we did when we were reviewing the papers today.
Yes.
So this is the intro and the second and third paragraph. The National Assembly has ignored protests by employers and adopted a proposal that requires them to top up contributions made by employees to NHIF. The employers, through the Federation of Kenya Employers, FKE, have been opposed to the proposal contained in the NHIF Amendment Bill 2021, which the House considered yesterday. They had warned against being compelled to match the contributions, arguing that this would affect their wage bills and undermine the capacity of enterprises to create new jobs. But MPs shrugged off the concerns and unanimously adopted the proposal, setting the stage for the increased contribution to the fund that, if implemented, will see NHIF raise an additional 25 billion shillings. That is The Nation. The Standard, page 20. MPs spare employers more NHIF burden. They argue that additional burden of statutory deductions on employers would take away the intentions of UHC. So this is the intro and the second and third paragraph. Employers can sigh with the relief. The National Assembly failed to adapt additional burden of statutory deductions that could have seen them match workers' monthly contributions to NHIF. The plan was to have the workers continue paying same amounts and employers matching in a structure modelled on NSSF. The lawmakers argued that the move would take away the intentions of UHC that is being spearheaded by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The NHIF Fund Bill 2021, sponsored by Amos Kimunya, proposes to make it mandatory for employers to make a match to match the employee's contribution to the fund. So, what do you understand? Which of these stories do you go with? One story says that MPs have rejected that proposal to have employers contribute. The other story says MPs have adopted that proposal to have employers contribute. Coming from the same parliament.
You know, there's something...
Same day, same proceedings.
You know, I will wait for the outcome. Yes.
That will be the one.
I will wait for the outcome. Why am I saying this? One of the really strong independent institutions we have in this country is the media. And the media in this country is the envy of very many countries in this continent. But you see, that vibrancy is not something you take for granted. It's like an animal that does a good job of either providing you with sustenance and food or protection. They have to be well fed. Meaning, you can't allow it, for instance, if it was a watchdog, you can't allow it to just be friendly to every guest who comes along. okay, then it stops being a watchdog. It ceases to serve its purpose. I'm not saying that we should be ferocious and bare our teeth at every instance, but vigilance is important. Now, why am I saying this? For the longest time, many of our countrymen and women have taken what is printed or what is reported or what they hear or what they see as sacrosanct. It was in the news. And they will not go beyond that. It was in the news, it is true. It is synonymous with truth. Now, you tell me what happens when we also become purveyors of falsehoods. Is that damage, once it is caused and it's established, is it easy to recover from?
Anarchy.
Yes, exactly. Because you then are tarred with the same brush as everybody else says, you can't really trust these people. Or,
because you're all part of the same pack.
Yes. So even the role you're supposed to play is not just watered down. You actually start the path of obliterating it yourself.
Yeah.
Now, my comment, whenever something is being reported and you read something of that sort, you wonder, should a little more time not have been taken before this thing was put together to be presented?
Anyway, like you said, time will tell.
There's a story. There's a story that I was being told by somebody who's been in the media for a very long time. He's saying that one of the pitfalls of news reporting, as it is, and how it is, it mirrors the Kenyan society as it is. He said, depending on where that news is coming from, he said, most people don't understand even the term stringer or correspondent. They don't.
Yeah.
But it's the person in this far-flung place who puts together the news and then presents it. All right? Now, depending on whose function is more important and where one is likely to even have a meal, you can find two stories coming from the same place, but one which is actually prominent, which was perhaps the function, taking second place to something else. And he gave the example. He told me, this is something that actually appeared many years ago. He said, I marveled at it. This was the report. So-and-so, who is the leader of XYZ, held a function in this and this and this place. And many people attended. Now, in that same area, the story goes, a man whose name was XYZ slashed his wife's neck and she died. Now you're thinking, wait a moment. How are these two stories aligned?
They're presented in the same story.
Same story. While still in this, and it continues, while in this same area, at the same time, this happened. So okay, there was this function, the Mkubwa had their function, and somebody else slashes the wife's neck.
Reading the bullet. Basically, what this guy is, it's a bulletin of what's happening what's happening in my area. So there was a function, and there was a death, there was a funeral, there was a birth, there was a cow that was sold. All those things happened. Now, it's a town crier. Basically, just standing there and saying,
Leo,
hear ye. What's happening today? His Majesty the King has done this and the other.
Has gone for breakfast.
Yes.
Has gone to some cherry-picking event. He's going to oversee the state fair later.
Yes.
Succession. They're just telling you they're not really thinking through. It's been prepared.
It's a bulletin.
Yeah.
Yes, and meanwhile, the day before, a live frog was found in his soup.
Yes.
And you're just going on as though nothing else happened, right?
Yes.
Okay, we've sort of steered clear of what's been happening in terms of the rally towards 2022 for a while. But today, two things. Well, one event yesterday has occupied the headlines in the papers. And this is Raila Odinga's meeting with business leaders from Mount Kenya region. They're called what? The Mount Kenya Forum. Mount Kenya Foundation. The headline in The Nation, changing fortunes. Portrayed as an enemy of Mount Kenya in the past, a scarecrow tactic his rivals have exploited, ODM leader Raila Odinga heads into the 2022 race with a fighting chance in the vote-rich region. Yesterday, after his successful mountain tour, the former PM sat down with the region's tycoons who expressed their backing for his bid. The Standard, Raila swims unfamiliar political sea. From his traditional combative style of politics against the government, the ODM leader today faces an election where he is seen as pro-system, statesmanly and less aggressive. But will this new strategy finally deliver the ultimate victory? So basically, he's saying, Raila, Raila is portraying himself as, this man, safe pair of hands, trustworthy, somebody who can be trusted. The leadership of Mount Kenya that has previously campaigned against him, some that have previously campaigned against him, also coming out to say, yeah, we agree, we have been at loggerheads before, but this time we stand to tell our people that he's actually a good man. Governor Francis Kimemia, for example, was speaking and saying, previously we campaigned against this man. Francis Kimemia was head of civil service, was secretary to the cabinet.
Yeah.
Even saying, in fact, during the Grand Coalition, where I was sitting there as secretary to the cabinet, some of the cabinet papers were being drafted by Raila. And some of our colleagues in cabinet were, Raila, I did come up with a good paper. And Kimemia is saying, see, people would not even believe. But yeah, the man is capable. He understands what needs to be done. There's a whole conversation that's there now happening about Raila, Mount Kenya. Raila has climbed the mountain. Raila is up there in the mountain. It's a very interesting conversation. Not that it's anything new. For me, I'm just looking at it, I'm saying, okay, yeah. But I think what stands out for me, and we can combine all these aspects, even from what you give, is I'm seeing us heading towards 2022 with the ability for any political leader to tour any part of this country and people not looking at them from the tribal lens.
Is that not a good thing?
Yeah. Ruto has been in Nyanza. Ruto has been in Mount Kenya. Ruto has been at the coast. And, he's held his meetings. He's come back. Raila has been to Mount Kenya. Raila has been to other parts of the country. Raila especially going to Mount Kenya. Well, he's gone. Many people come out. Many people support him. And he goes back. Nothing big is happening. I think we as we talk about everything else, for me, this is what stands out for me. That we are at that space where we are not discussing, oh, no. There are some parts of this country that are, the Kikuyu say, kanyanga.
It may sound...
kanyanga.
It may sound strange, but the handshake that the president and his deputy had when they first got into power...
In 2002.
Yes.
In 2003.
No, 2013.
2013, yes. 2020, yes.
It actually paved the way for what we are seeing, because the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins were seen as two warring factions. I'm talking perceptions here, okay? And because the atrocities that were committed in the Rift Valley, it seemed the most unlikely thing for these two communities to actually arrive at an understanding and work together, because these two represented those communities. That they were able to work, it brought in something new. Something new in that, yes, you can have really grave differences where lives are lost. But there is the possibility that one can open up a new chapter and begin to work together. Now, there is a culture that I see in Kenya, and I like that culture. One, it began with President Moi ending his term and saying, okay, folks, I am retiring, I am going home. It may seem innocuous, just like the repealing of Section 2A seemed innocuous at the time. But with multipartyism, all these changes now came about. Now, why do I mention President Daniel Arap Moi? That going home heralded a new beginning. Meaning, presidents come, their terms come to an end, they go home. See, we look at this continent, that doesn't seem to be the norm. This issue of presidents going home, presidents don't want to go home.
No.
They want to stay. Now, they have very good reasons why they want to stay, but I'm simply saying that norm in our country, it's a good thing. So we can take it for granted. How I wish that we would also take it for granted that people adhere to the rule of law. How I wish. Because it would make life so simple. It would empower the police. It would empower the citizenry. And you'd know. So you wouldn't look at court rulings as adversarial. You know, we do. Every time there is a court ruling, one doesn't look at it as, look, this is what the law says. It is, hey, these guys don't really like the government.
Yeah,
it's not
the
that they
government
don't like
has
the
lost.
government. The government has lost. It's always somebody has won, somebody has lost. Yes, they have, but it is the law. Now, with that attitude, even when there is something that is wrong within the judiciary and it is pointed out, it's payback time. Remember that ruling that they had the other time? Because it portrays a complete lack of faith in our own rule of law. It's like a game of chess. Someone moves this particular piece, the other moves this particular piece to counter it, and it's a forever game of chess. Now, how wonderful it would be if, similar to the trends that we now have with the presidency, we would know. I'm segueing into this, Eric, from what you're saying about our campaigns. So far, these are very lovely, peaceful campaigns. People go, they meet crowds, they talk, they go away. However, the chink in this particular story is COVID. Because we have forgotten that COVID hasn't gone away. And we don't seem to remember that only 3% of our population have been vaccinated. But, as one of our guests told us today, sometimes point out the positive things. So let me focus on the positive things.
Be positive for a while.
Yes. Let me be positive. The peace that we see is something that we must struggle and fight to maintain.
That's true.
It is a good thing. And it's something we should fight for. Because not everybody wants peace, by the way. Not everybody is happy with peace. Just like not everybody is happy with the rule of law.
Yeah.
Are we seeing this move that clearly is being announced across the country as symbolic of this, that there are many regions out in the country who are not out necessarily for their own kind of political strivings, but then are ready to embrace
others?
Is it symbolic? I mean, usually when we look at this move, splashed across the headlines, the focus is him as Raila. But oughtn't it be that we are looking at the rest, we're looking at him as approaching them?
Yeah.
Why don't we look at them as receiving him?
Them receiving him.
Other parts of the country receiving this, probably, and not necessarily new, because many would argue that he's always had a good relationship with other parts of the country. But we can see this open, clear acceptance of him. Maybe that they've graduated to the place where it doesn't matter who you are, but for the sake of peace and for the sake of accepting a new political dispensation, that we would accept him. More often than not, we look at it as the man and where he has gone.
Conquered, but only the people who have
accepted that this is all right. We can work with this
can I
for our own.
Can I just, with the same on the same angle,
throw a curveball?
It's not a curveball, actually. It's just a
perspective.
A perspective, the unspoken perspective. Because Mount Kenya does not have a strong contender for the presidency, that animosity is not there.
Explain yourself, please.
You see, Ruto, Mudavadi, Raila, all of them who are not sons of Mount Kenya, going to Mount Kenya, and because they are welcome into Mount Kenya, they are also going to other parts of the country. There is no issue. Previously, it's been people who are not from Mount Kenya feeling the heat as they approach Mount Kenya to go and campaign, number one. And then because of that kind of cold treatment that they receive, their own regions where they come from, when the Mount Kenya candidate is going there, he's also viewed in the same way.
They reciprocate.
There's that reciprocity.
Yes.
Right? So because now this time, Mount Kenya don't, okay, you come and woo us. We are willing to listen. They're even caucusing together with the Mother Karua group, with the other groups, all caucusing together. We're willing to listen to anybody who wants to come and talk to us and just tell us what we can gain out of this. Because of that, peace is now transcending the country. Because Mount Kenya is not coughing and sneezing,
since
there's no cold spreading.
Since we're in the realm of
speculation.
No. That isn't speculation. That is an interesting perspective. Let me add another perspective. Is it also that there's an understanding that Mount Kenya has already produced 3 presidents?
And that they're comfortable and say we've had enough?
No. Now we're talking politics.
That now it's not going to be unfair if you don't have a fourth.
You can have one. It's
yes.
okay.
Yes. Meaning, it's like the same story of folks. Can we also be seen to be supporting somebody who is not necessarily our own?
Our own.
Yes.
Sure, but I also actually see it this way. That is just because that if there was someone who was strong, I do believe that the support would have been thrown in that direction. They're accepting of this position because who do they see? Who has been seen right now that can carry the gauntlet in this manner? And maybe there's no option. And so they take that which is the strongest option. Had there been one, perhaps it would be a totally different situation now. Because they would say, well, you know what? One of our own is actually here contending, and he or she is actually a strong contender. So that's who we're going to throw our support behind. In the absence of such, then who's the next best?
Are we saying that the mountain doesn't have people who can actually contend for the presidency?
They can contend, but an acceptable contender is what right now...
No, acceptable to whom?
To them.
To them.
To them.
Somebody whom they can caucus around.
Yes, and right now there's no one that they can focus around. If you see this,
but it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much for someone to emerge and for people to caucus.
It's possible that one could emerge, but up until this point that we are speaking
if Moi
right
Kibaki
now,
wasn't a candidate in 2002, it would have been very easy for Uhuru Kenyatta to immediately at that point be the kingpin.
Right, but as we speak right now,
Mount Kenya has not produced.
That's not happened. And so, since that has not happened, and we're quickly hurtling towards the line, they say, okay, you know what, guys, we've not seen anybody. Next option. That's who we're going to throw our support behind.
I am of a different opinion.
You'll give us the opinion. Let's take this break. It's 9:30. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Yeah, everybody trying to climb the mountain. So why is it? And what does this mean to our politics as we head towards 2022? What are the different perspectives that you read out of this? Raila Odinga has gone to the mountain. William Ruto has basically been camping in the mountain since 2008. Musalia Mudavadi has been to the mountain. Who else is vying for the presidency and has been there? We have also seen Alfred Mutua has been to the mountain. Kivuda Kibwana has had some mountain visits and others.
Some mountain climbing.
Yes.
Can we just get to the summit already?
Get to the summit, eh? Okay, let's take a break. It's 9:30. We continue. We'll be opening up the phone lines to hear your perspectives as well. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in McQueen?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, this resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Seriousness Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Seriousness Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Sunny conditions at 20. The sun is out in Nairobi. Highs of 28 and lows of 15. Nakuru sunny at 20, highs of 27. We'll see lows of 14 and 15 will be the low in a cloudy Nyeri at 19, going to highs of 26. Eldoret is sunny at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 12. We're looking at still rainy conditions in certain parts of Mombasa at 28, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Rain showers in Malindi at 28, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Into Kisumu, it's mostly sunny at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 20. Kakamega is sunny at 25, we'll see highs of 29 and lows of 15. Out into Kampala, mostly sunny conditions at 24 herald the morning, into highs of 29 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, light rain at 29, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Joburg, sunny at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 13. We're looking at light rain still in Lagos at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 24. Kinshasa's cloudy at 25, we'll see lows of 24 and highs of 33. Out east on the globe into Beijing at 27, into late afternoon, it's sunny, highs of just that and lows of 17. Paris, mostly cloudy conditions at 13, highs of 17 and lows of 7. And we'll look at sunny conditions in London at 10, highs of 15 and lows of 9. And we'll round things out in New York. It's clear at 16 early Wednesday morning with highs of 20 and lows of 13.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
Okay, still continues. We're getting out of traffic hours soon enough, but we'll still see that middle of the city issue all the way from Uhuru Highway at the Nyayo Stadium roundabout through to Westlands, in and outbound. It's leveling out on the Thika Superhighway. Not too terrible right now, but we'll still see that, dregs of traffic at least for another half hour or so. Apart from that, we're out of traffic hours soon. If it picks up during the day and things get a little bit crazy, you know what to do. Text on 40127, tweet SpiceFM KE.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
24
done
minutes
right.
to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. That's our phone line. You can call in and we have the conversation together. So Mount Kenya basically is the single region with the largest combined number of votes, right?
Yes.
Contributes to about almost 40% of the voting population of the country. So you go there, you get some chunk of it, you're doing well. And that's why probably we're seeing the main political contenders in the country who are seeking the presidency next year camping there and coming back and back and back. The latest one being Raila Odinga. He's been to Mount Kenya. Yesterday, he held a meeting with the moneybags of Mount Kenya. So they're basically regarded as the Mount Kenya, what are they called again?
Foundation.
And these include the millionaires and the billionaires and other influential people from around Mount Kenya. And they said, yeah, he's a good man. We give him our support. Of course, when you see moneybags giving support, it also means that they're also going to extend some kind of financial goodwill here and there.
And they will also expect certain guarantees.
In return.
Yes.
It's an investment.
Business persons do not just get into an arrangement without a clear understanding.
Yes.
That's as politely as I can put it.
We've also seen William Ruto going into the mountain. He has several people who are from Mount Kenya who've been campaigning for him. He's been there many times. He's campaigning. We've seen people who have said yes. In fact, people who, the by-elections that have taken place in this region, candidates that have been aligned to either outfit that has the support of William Ruto winning in the by-elections. So it's a very, very, very lucrative region to visit. So what does this mean?
Can I ask the question, Eric?
Ask.
When I observe the outcomes of some of these by-elections, I actually ask myself the question, is UDA or the affiliate parties popular, or are people trying to poke the president in the eye? You see, two very different things here.
Is it a protest vote or is it a support vote?
Yes. What is it? It's a question I asked myself.
Yeah.
And I haven't received a response that adequately explains what has happened.
What do you see? What's your perspective?
My perspective is this. UDA and the affiliates understood how to campaign effectively, and they campaigned effectively. And how do you campaign effectively? you choose someone who you believe the people will support. You start there. And then they played on a certain narrative that has been reported to be in central Kenya, and that is the president has neglected his backyard. Now, if you combine these two, and somebody is vying for that seat on a party that is affiliated to the president, the likelihood of that person winning can be a bit slim. Thirdly, UDA and its affiliates were also prudent enough to focus on the youth. And the youth seem to support their agenda. So, in my view, it was a winning formula. But still, winning against what? Against a narrative that somebody had neglected their backyard. And so, anyone who is affiliated to them should not be given an opportunity. That's my view.
I think I agree with that perspective to some extent. I think it was a protest vote, but a protest against the individual of the president, not the presidency, and then a sort of an endorsement. As we protest, we are also telling you that we are endorsing.
Yes.
The person that clearly appears to be the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So we are endorsing your enemy.
In whose world is their friend?
Yes. He becomes their friend. So, yeah. Perspectives. What's your perspective as you look at all these forays into Mount Kenya? Raila climbing the mountain. That has been the conversation recently. He's made inroads. This time he appears, there are people who are willing even to go ahead and popularize his campaign. There are people who are willing to come out. Did you see the crowds that came out throughout his tour? Nanyuki, all the way back, Githurai, the number of people that came out just to cheer Raila Odinga in Githurai.
There's a perspective here. Yeah. We may not say it loudly enough, but the reality is the mwananchi mtukufu, the local citizen, follows the leading of their leaders. So long as Raila was unacceptable, or the narrative was that he was unacceptable, the mwananchi did not consider him acceptable. The leadership seems to be saying, by the way, he's now acceptable. Okay? So people will, so I won't be stepping on anybody's toes if I go to see him. So they go out. That is why someone like Jimmy Wanjigi, if you exclude Migori from that particular equation, was able to traverse Luo Janza happily. Migori is a unique place.
It's a unique place, or because he had the perceived endorsement of somebody that they support almost to a level of sycophancy?
When I say Migori is a unique place, I mean precisely that. If you understand the political goings on in Migori, you will know why I'm saying it is unique. Remember, it is the same venue where ODM went to officially open a so-called office.
Yes.
And the violence that met the group that went there. And ODM, by the way...
away with tail between legs.
National leadership.
Yes,
national leadership. People... it was not a pretty sight.
Like Sifuna was reminding us, ask Professor Nyang'o about Migori.
Yes.
Ask him what he thinks. 0719-012-600. We're having a political conversation today and we're just opening it up. Perspectives. What do you read from Raila's foray into Mount Kenya, the kind of support that he's got in the meeting that he had yesterday with the leaders of this region, billionaires and such other, influential people from the community? What does it mean? Mount Kenya for Raila? 0719-012-600. Mwalimu Irongo.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine.
Now, did you hear
Eric,
our call that you give city today a proverb?
I even replied.
Oh, where?
And asked, and I replied on your Twitter handle.
Okay.
And asked Eric to give me the journal through which I send the proverbs, because I have them in abundance, because I've stayed in this region all along and I'm a teacher of literature.
We are done. We are
Thank
done.
You. Now,
yes.
Now let him just get to me
Okay.
I'll give them to you. You know, I don't want to give them in the open because by the time he's giving one, it will not become very useful.
He'll have your number. He'll reach out to you.
Yes, please.
You send it to him, in fact, with a voice note, pronouncing it the way it should be pronounced.
Oh, yes.
City, you're sorted.
Completely sorted. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mwalimu.
All right.
You are all welcome. How is Ndu?
Don't count your chicks yet. Ndu, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm fine. Now, Raila Odinga
yes,
is actually among the people who have fought for this country's political space, and particularly the democratic space, fighting bad governance and so on and so forth. And the Kikuyus in the Mount Kenya region and the whole of Kenya know this. So, as City has correctly put it, the citizens of the country have never seen him as unacceptable, as unelectable. The problem has actually been that he has been running against that mountain. Now that he's not running against the mountain, one of the factors that we have to come to terms with is that they can see he means well for Kenya. And in fact, even if we didn't, the other perspective, on that same perspective again, is that he has not done anything that makes him different from others who are seeking, now that he's not running against the mountain. So they have every reason to support him. Secondly, if you look at the candidature of Honorable William Samuel Ruto, it may not be the best for some of the people in the mountain, because I'm sorry to say, if one thing is that once you have leadership in your region, you don't want to lose it. So the moment they support William fully and William becomes president, he is a young man compared to Raila Odinga. It will be a bit more difficult for them to bargain the position back to them as quickly as they may want to be, because he appears to be very ambitious. He must go for 10 years. So last but not least, it appears to me again that all of us know that President Kenyatta is behind all this, but we also have to remember that these guys stayed together. I remember the Ruto Odinga saying that Raila would carry both Ruto Odinga and the current president Uhuru Kenyatta on his back and walk them around because they were family friends. So the long and short of it is that they feel safe in his hands for those reasons and many others. But let me stop there so that I can allow others to comment.
Thank you, Mwalimu. Thank you very much.
Asante.
Let's go to Mombasa. Anthony.
Hello, morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Habari ya leo.
Nzuri sana.
How is Nairobi?
The sun is shining brightly today.
Mombasa, it drizzled a bit.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Zima radio yako kidogo.
Yeah, now, if I can just say what I wanted to say. There was a problem that Jubilee had in Central when during these by-elections. What they had decided to do was do their campaigns on, how can I put, on boards. And some few individuals sit down and decide this is the person, so-and-so will take care of this and that. But they failed to listen to the ground, the people on the ground, which now made it easier for UDA to gain mileage. Now, the strategy Odinga is taking is still going to meet the business people, the billionaires, the millionaires, the funders, but he is not going to listen what the local Mwananchi is saying. Everyone right now is crying about fuel, is crying about what, and no one is paying attention. Everyone is saying what they want to say. I'm coming as a liberator. Yes, that is your strategy that was there since 2007. Yes, but right now it is the economy. So you have to bring a message that will resonate with the local Mwananchi down there.
And don't you think,
yes.
Anthony, that the tour that he made over the weekend to several counties in the region was exactly that, communicating and feeling the ground?
Yes, you are telling people what you want to do for them. But what you want to do for them has to resonate with their issue.
Okay.
You get?
You're not asking
you
them
first
what
listen
they
to
want.
their yes, you listen to them, then now you say, this is what I'm coming to do.
But
That's why,
Anthony, when you hear of a tour or a Meet the People tour, there are several layers and levels of conversation. There are the public gatherings that you see, but there are many other smaller gatherings where somebody probably meets and talks to the leadership, and that the very thing you're saying takes place there.
Now the problem, I'm not directly campaigning for Ruto, but the strategy he has taken is that he sidelined the MPs, the so-called leaders, and he has decided to go talk to the groupings, small groupings, women groups, church. You get
but is that not talking to the Mwananchi?
Yes, it's talking to the Mwananchi, but you are going to the smaller unit. Truth be told,
he's devolved it.
Yes, truth be told, when you look at the history in Central, not most of the MPs will come back. So it will be the wrong decision to go to talk to them because they are not coming back.
Okay.
But once you devolve it to a smaller unit, the women group, the whatnot, you will get the message. Now, from that message, come up with a strategy.
Sometimes when we talk about political leadership, we assume that they're the ones who actually make the decision at the grassroots level.
Or shape the agenda.
Yes. Opinion leaders and opinion shapers in communities may not necessarily be those political leaders that you think of.
Exactly.
But I think what Anthony is saying, if I understand you correctly, is the perception on the ground. If you're dealing with, you come and, the people who are addressing the meeting are governors, and then you go to the billionaires, then the local person feels, all right, so you're still talking to those people at the top. You are not basically engaging with me. But when you say you come to a meeting and you have those small groupings where it's the women from the market who will come, it's the youth who will come, the people feel that you've actually brought yourself down to our level. Is that what you're saying, Anthony?
Yes, that's it might not be the truth, but that is the perception.
The perception, yeah.
Yes, that you have listened to us. Yes, but when you meet billionaires, you meet governors and whatnot, it's the same story. It's the same story.
He has a point.
It's dynasty versus hustler. Thank you very much, Anthony.
Okay, thank you.
0719-012-600 or SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. What is it that you feel? What do you read when you see, these forays into the Mount Kenya region? Raila Odinga, especially now, the latest one having gone there, his campaign, meeting with opinion leaders, meeting with community leaders, meeting with the governors and holding public rallies in the region. What do you see and what do you read from that? I think the point that Anthony has made, for me, it has made a bit of sense. But maybe it's because this is just one aspect of it that we are seeing. And we haven't seen more and more meetings being held by Raila on the ground. Probably, if he now rolls it out again, next time he's hosting a delegation and says, it's okay, you guys, come, let's meet, let's hear from you. Some youth leader here, some local councillor, MCA there, some local...
It's okay, sorry. So what I hear you saying essentially is that now what is fueling or running the agenda that is clear, that we can see whereas previously it may have been an individual decision, but that now it is actually coming from what people want to hear, and that is now what you are delivering. Could that be the reason now where you see this more robust rallying of support? Is that what you're saying? That previously it was not that you're taking people's views and thoughts into consideration, but that now we've seen a shift?
I think there's not a shift. It's basically an expectation. And you remember he started by saying, look at what is the reason why Jubilee performed as it performed in those by-elections. It was deemed, and the perception was that the decisions were being made at the boardroom somewhere, and then people are coming and campaigning, and they're just, coming. Whereas these other guys are, first of all, you pick, and you said yourself, pick a popular candidate. That means you're resonating with the people on the ground. Secondly, you're using the locals to campaign in the local campaign. And thirdly, you're not bringing the big wigs as they come. They're just coming to support a local conversation, not coming to lord on them, not coming to say, so-and-so who is a very rich man in this region is the one
so it's coming to sit amongst you, and hear what it is that what you have to say and what you're currently interested in, as opposed to coming and saying, look, this is what we are going to do.
Yes. Let's go to Tala before you comment, City. In Tala is Mweni.
Good morning.
Wow. Good morning, Mweni.
It's been a while, Mweni.
Okoh.
Yes, Mweni.
Ndu.
Yeah.
Your name sounds Kamba. We have a Kamba name called Nduku. So I'll always call you Nduku.
They already call me that. I don't even know how to help you guys now.
And okay.
What does it mean?
Something. Nduku means somebody born at night. Something to do with darkness.
That's very interesting because I was born at 10:45 p.m.
Then you're Nduku.
Then your mom is Kamba.
And what Ndu is telling you is the truth. She knows that's when she was born.
No, it's true. I had a baby book and my mother wrote it. Time of birth, 10:45 p.m. on a Monday specifically.
Okay.
Mweni, what do you read in the politics?
Let me tell you two things. Raila's father and Uhuru's father were buddies. They are the political fathers of Kenya at independence. Uhuru has an obligation to leave Kenya in safe hands. And then look at the people Raila is addressing himself to. People business people who are above, let's say, 45.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm going to take you back to 0207. They have not forgotten. They are the investors in Rift Valley. They don't want their generations to be squatters in this country. So that is the way I see things. If you check on Ruto's side, the people who are after him are the youngsters who forget very fast. I don't think they were affected by 02 and 07. And I'll also remind you of something that Uhuru said in support of Raila. Are we going to have only two tribes ruling this country? So I see it as Uhuru going out of his way to make sure Kenya is in safe hands, and also to remind that generation, remember what happened in 07 in our church? But the youngsters here only know about money. You give them money, they shut up. They don't know about tomorrow. And of course, Raila is aware of the support he has from other people because of obvious reasons. And that's why he's concentrating on that generation. And the generation wants their people. That generation wants their children to be assured of business and security in this country. Raila owes Kenya that. Safe hands to take care of Kenya.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mweni.
And where is that guy there? This professor. You know, I have 3 homes, let me just mention. I have a home in Tala, I have another one in Nairobi, and another one in Gem. Have a wonderful day. Amnyamalo.
Shemeji anaongea na mimi.
Bas. He gets the message. The unspoken message.
It has reached home.
It has reached home.
That person over there. Namely myself. That guy over there.
Yes. So, finish the show with the day's proverb, and then you can give me that perspective.
Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself against flies.
Uh-huh.
You know, whenever you discuss political matters, one of the things that is often forgotten is the power of optics. Raila's unpopularity had nothing to do with what he did. When Kibaki became president, Raila was a very popular man in central Kenya. Very. So what did he do that suddenly changed all that? Again, politics.
I was about to ask you, so has the mountain been dishonest?
The mountain unscalable in certain parts.
It's a leadership thing. If people feel the leadership are going in a certain direction, people tend to go in the direction that the leadership
is
goes.
Right.
You may not think so, but it's true.
Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning. We'll be here from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. City Muga, that guy, and that lady Ndu Okoh, and Eric Latiff. Wish you a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.